the votes. Let's play this sound and remind you in our audience that this all took place after January 6th.
I said, I don't want to hear any other effing words coming out of your mouth, no matter what, other than orderly transition. Repeat those words to me. And I figured that eventually he said orderly transition. I said, good, John. Now I'm going to give you the best free legal advice you're ever getting in your life. Get a great effing criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it. And then I hung up on him.
I mean, that's just like something out of a movie. First of all, just his recount and hearing him say that. But that also seems to be an indication, you know, from one lawyer to another, that he needs to get a criminal defense attorney. Is that, in your view, Liz Cheney suggesting that the Justice Department has grounds to step in too?
Well, I think Liz Cheney is just doing her job, which is laying this out after 1,000 interviews. But it's clearly the case that the Justice Department has to look at this series of attempts to subvert our Constitution and the rule of law, and they have to look in terms of the possibility of indictments and to potentially seek convictions. But even if that doesn't happen, laying this out, showing that even Trump supporters like this lawyer you just described realized that he had really jumped the shark, that he had gone to the point where he was willing to say the craziest things even to people who used to support him, is a sign that what you have is a loose cannon in our democracy. And somehow we have to prevent this loose cannon from shooting again.
It's interesting and perhaps reassuring to hear of names and people that most Americans had never heard of really standing up to the former president and allowing the democratic process to go through as it is meant to. That having been said, what is your take on the fact that they didn't speak out earlier, that it required, you know, being addressed and asked to come speak before a committee to get this on the record?
Well, that's a difficult question, and each person has to answer for themselves. But, you know, I'm old enough to remember all of this under Watergate. These were Nixon loyalists, John Dean and many other people who finally realized that it was appropriate for them to testify and to give the truth to protect our democracy. I mean, Liz Cheney is a great example. She wasn't just a Republican. She was a conservative Republican and a strong supporter of the president.
In what universe?
But they all realized at some point that this had gone too far, that you couldn't justify it, you couldn't balance it, and they're doing what's right for our country. And we should be praising them at this time for that.
But Senator, is that wishful thinking? I mean, we all know that the majority of Republicans then all aligned with Democrats after Watergate in those hearings, ultimately leading to the resignation of President Nixon. That wasn't the case in 2 impeachments prior, and it doesn't seem to be the case now for the majority of Republicans, Liz Cheney notwithstanding, and Adam Kinzinger. The majority of Republicans are either focusing away from these hearings or focusing on the economy. And I'm just curious, given your history and the fact that there was another economic malaise, that the 2008 financial crisis that ultimately led you losing your job and the Tea Party wave growing in this country, are you worried that everything that we're talking about right now will sort of be swept under the rug and the focus again will shift to what looks like we're entering another harsh economic challenge for the country?
Well, I think you're right.
So the harsh economic challenge is because of Biden, right? And right now they are trying to stop President Trump from ever being allowed to run for president or any seat for that matter. But they keep talking about the successes that they have and how incredible these liberals are. Well, in fact, I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was quite fascinating. There was a liberal DA who had a deal with a cartel member and let him off after he killed a cop. Take a listen.
The heartbroken family of fallen police officer Joseph Santana speaking out after learning the gang member accused of shooting Santana and Corporal Michael Padres was let off easy by the Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon.
Just letting all these criminals out, and they just keep doing one crime after the other. Like I should have been in jail. If he would have been out, my son and the other officer would still be here. Now we're just left here to suffer because they're never coming back. To everyone else, this is just a news story, but to us, this is real life.
There you've got the sister and the mother before that, and one of the officers. This comes as Gascon's office defends the plea deal that let the cop killer out on probation despite his lengthy criminal record.
Wow, LA County Association.
Remember, he was allowed to be on probation after doing all of that, serving 2 prison terms for burglary and car theft, sent back to prison for burglary, prohibited from carrying a gun, arrested and charged with the possession of meth, a handgun, and ammunition. And on Monday, his girlfriend reported him for assault. He was still not arrested in LA County. And this guy is also suspected to have killed an officer, which is being adjudicated as we speak because there was a deal. He got a deal. Dr. Simone Gold got 60 days in jail. Now, I'm not saying, there's a bias here, but I want to know how this works. In what reality does this seem fair, correct, or anything? Now, we all know that MS-13 runs the show for the illegal activities for the Democrats. Nancy Pelosi and her container companies off of Long Island Beach, Long Beach. Why did I say Long Island? That's somebody else. I'm going to keep that to myself for now. That's not something we need to talk about. I was working on that stuff that I got from Letitia. So Long Beach, where she has her container companies, and down south of the border where she transports them. MS-13 helps ensure that whatever products or goods they are transporting get through. Therefore, they get a deal, no matter who they kill, even if it's an officer. But Americans that may have gotten routed up, because it felt like they were in a mosh pit, on January 6th, were swayed by organized criminal informants and people who thought that they could frame President Trump. Keep in mind, the people that surround President Trump do not want President Trump around. They need proximity in order to take them down. Now, I've had this happen to me. I mean, a lot of you have actually seen it with someone who brought themselves with proximity, embraced, given love, affection, notoriety, and their job was simply to break that down. This happens all the time. Everyone has a Judas. Unfortunately, there's a lot of issues that are going to be coming up, and people you think are for you are really not. And people you think were pro-Trump are suddenly going to be like, yeah, I don't trust Trump. He did this. He did that. He didn't do anything. It's the people that worked for him that did things. And like he said, he needs to lose everything to see who is really with him. And every single one of them is going down.
Of Deputy DA as Vice President Eric Seidel joins us now to react. Eric, you see the pain and you think it's terrible, but it's also preventable. Are people getting the wake-up call?
I think they are. Officer Santana's mother is exactly right. This is a guy who should never have been out of state prison. He had a strike, and the minimum legal sentence he should have received was 32 months. But in George Gascon's legal system, he got probation, and that's just absolutely wrong.
So Gascon, when he took office, he issued the special directive 2008, and it says any prior strikes will not be used for sentencing and shall be dismissed. You can plead no contest and receive a lighter sentence, and that's exactly what happened here. Usually you get probation the first time, but this guy had already been in prison or in jail twice before, and the third time he gets probation. And you hear these interviews with the people behind bars, and they say, thank goodness Gascon is in office because we can beat the system. What's your reaction to that? And what's your reaction to the recall efforts? Do the majority of people that you talk to, even the ones who haven't signed the recall, are they for recalling him and putting someone else in his place?
Look, he broke the system. He now owns it. And the reason why these two officers are dead is because of his policies. And I think that people are finally starting to wake up and see exactly what it means to live under George Gascon's criminal justice system, which means that criminals get released, criminals continue to terrorize the community. And in this case, a gang member with a gun killed 2 El Monte police officers. And that's waking up the community. People are ready to sign. They've already passed the actual required number. Now we just need the padding to make sure that ballot, that this gets on the ballot.
All right. And Eric, regarding this cop killer, Gascon's office said, quote, the sentence he received in the firearm case was consistent with case resolutions for this type of offense, given his criminal history and the nature of the offense. At the time, the court sentenced him, Mr. Flores, did not have a documented history of violence. But you know what, Eric? He had a history of criminality.
So Gascon's statement is utter nonsense. Yeah, maybe it's consistent under his system of justice, but in every other normal prosecutorial agency, that's not what happens. A felon with a firearm, a gang member with a firearm, a guy caught with dope and ammunition, that guy gets state prison. He doesn't get probation in any real criminal justice system.
Well, yeah, not the one you're under now. Eric, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And that means
Yeah, we don't care. Everyone's a traitor. They have interest, so I'm just gonna pass it. Jump. So what you see is this bifurcation on who gets justice and who doesn't. But under the guise of anti-bullying, we're getting our Ministry of Truth regardless. Now they're just gonna do it differently. See, a lot of people think that the Ministry of Truth that they tabled was gonna be put in the side. But she's bringing it in with cyberbullying, and she's going to head the disinformation board. Kamala Harris is.
Essential part of life in the 21st century. Can't get around it. Can't get around without it.
Okay, Kamala Harris launching a new task force to combat and prevent online abuse and bullying. That's what she says. But the New York Post calls Harris Big Sister 2 after Nina Jankowicz asked to clear up how Harris's new online a policy task force is different from President Biden's Ministry of Truth. The White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre can't really say.
In charge of
So I would need to talk to her team. I was not on the background call. So that specific language that you're providing to me, I would just have to check in with her. I would also encourage you to check as well with her team.
Does she have answers to anything? No, of course not. Well, let's welcome in now former Trump 2016 foreign policy advisor and Newsmax contributor George Papadopoulos. George, great to see you.
Thanks a lot for having me, John.
I think we should be vigilant here, but not worried, because if Kamala Harris is as successful doing this, being Big Sister 2, as she has been with her role as border czar, nothing's going to change.
Well, as soon as I read that they were trying to create this
Wait a minute. What do you mean border czar? She didn't go to the border. She flew past the border. She was not near the border. I'm very confused here. But now she's going to bring her Ministry of Truth, which I told you that they were lining up. Schiff has been organizing that, because Schiff and Pence work together. Right. In the past, they have caucuses together. They're so intertwined. I don't understand why people think that these politicians that have been there for so long in Congress and the Senate have your interests in mind. They've all danced together. Oh, we're just trying to be bipartisan. No, you're not. You're just all the same thing, pretending you're not. This is exactly what is going on. Kamala Harris, I'm telling you this now. If things happen the way they're supposed to happen, they will make her president before they get taken out completely. And they will remove Biden, and it will be a show. Will be a show. And that's if the people muster enough together to petition at their local counties to ensure that we are not using electronic voting machines. And I urge you to look at the history of the implementation of these machines so that you understand how they were implemented. When they were brought forward, different counties decided to take them on and others didn't. Some got bribed. Well, most of them did, but there were a few that did not. And after Barack Hussein Obama was president and under Bush, the Department of Justice literally sued and pursued any county that would not take the machines. This is key. Because if you look, your past proves exactly where you are now in the future from there. They forced counties to take them. They forced them. And now we're going to make them not use them. Hey, you know, people are like, oh, I had this conversation with people, with a lot of people actually. Oh, we can't do ballots with paper and pencil. There's so many people. And I'm like, do you know how many millions of dollars are spent on these machines? What if they spent those millions of dollars to hire people and get them some nice government rate pay to count the votes live on camera? People will be pulling out popcorn and they're going to be all excited watching the elections and watching how things are done. This can be something tangible. Why mess it up and give the keys to the kingdom to your government? Oh no, Tori, no. Dominion did it. Okay, Dominion can't do anything unless the government says so. And this is where you are going to see the fourth unelected branch. We've been talking about it for years, from Comey to, the people that work under Comey, from Brennan to the people that work under Brennan, the IGs, all these people you don't elect but get appointed, and their cronies. They're the ones in charge. Dominion, ES&S, all of these, they're all the same. The same division is in charge of everything. The same fourth unelected branch of government. And I hope, now that I'm on the ballot as Secretary of State for the state of Ohio, now I've got standing. And here we go. Because the truth has to be dragged out regardless. Now it has to be dragged out regardless, because you're going to have this person that identifies as a woman. I guess she knows what defines a woman, but apparently we confirmed a Supreme Court justice with no opening for Supreme Court justice. And it's a Supreme Court justice that has no idea what a woman is, and she will not define it, yet she's going to sit there and talk about things that have to do with women. It makes zero sense. You look at the scope of what is going on in our nation, and you're like, this is crazy town. People are looking at us and laughing. So the New Jersey Supreme Court says danger invites rescue. The doctrine does not apply to attempts to save pets. So there was a case, Samalik versus Birth, that was decided on Monday by the New Jersey Supreme Court. And Judge Fuentes said this appeal requires the court to determine whether to expand the common law rescue doctrine to permit plaintiffs to recover damages for injuries sustained as a proximate result of attempting to rescue the defendant's dog. After reviewing the noble principles that infuse the public policy underpinning this cause of action, we decline to consider property in whatever form to be equally entitled to the unique value and protection we bestow on human life. So this came from injuries sustained by plaintiff Ann Samalik while trying to rescue a dog, Bo, a 79-pound boxer, that was owned by the defendants, Ilona and Robert DeStefanis. Anne's husband, John Samalik, filed a civil action against the defendants as Anne's guardian ad litem, alleging that the defendants were liable under the rescue doctrine by negligently allowing their dog to fall or jump into the canal that borders their property, prompting Anne to dive into the water to prevent the dog from drowning. The parties are neighbors by Fork River, an unincorporated bayfront community within Lacey Township. So their homes are like situated on the canal. And on July 13, 2017, the defendant's dog fell or jumped or was thrown out into the canal that snakes around the rear area of the shore community. Anne, the plaintiff, claimed she heard someone calling for help to rescue their dog that had fallen into the canal. A report filed by Lacey police officer describes the incident as a report of a dog swimming in the lagoon. The report states that Anne entered the lagoon to rescue the dog. The dog was removed from the lagoon without any apparent harm by the defendant's son and a family friend. Regrettably, Anne was found unconscious on a floating dock. In response to defendants' interrogatories, the plaintiffs alleged that Anne sustained neurological and cognitive injuries as a result of the incident. Danger invites rescue. The cry of distress summons relief. The law does not ignore the reactions of the mind, tracing the conduct to the consequences. It recognizes them as normal. It places their effects within the range of natural and probable. The rescue doctrine was originally limited to situations where three persons are involved, like one party by his culpable act has placed another person as a position of imminent peril, which invites a third person, the rescuing plaintiff, to come to his aid. But it has since been, used in situations where the rescuer sues the rescued victim, who is either completely or partially at fault for creating the peril that invited the rescue. So basically, the plaintiff jumped in to save the dog that was thrown out, jumped out, whatever, fell out. And she was rendered, she has neurological deficiencies and cognitive deficiencies now. Anne's actions were basically solely on her perception of danger to the dog's life. And that distinction intended to acknowledge and reaffirm the public policy that underpins the rescue doctrine in the state of New Jersey, to wit, the protection of human life. So the plaintiff's complaint was dismissed because Anne's decision to jump into the canal to save the dog's life does not provide her coverage. So because it's a dog, it doesn't matter. And this happened in New Jersey. And it's so sad to see, that the other neighbors, asked, please help, please help. She goes to help. She gets injury and no one is helping her. She jumped in to save their dog and no one is helping her. I kind of think, sometimes that there's a real danger in being visible, being visible. It is dangerous. And right now there's a lot of people that are visible, and when people fail, they feel like they're invisible or that they will be taunted. A person that is visible because they achieve success, it's temporary. The knowledge you gain from failure and successes as well is what make you a winner, to say it the best place. Failure differs from person to person, and it's probably based on your values, your expectations. And sometimes we take on the definition of success imposed by how your family, your culture, or your friends take a look at it, right? And how someone who's, world famous, does things. But, even Thomas Edison said that, if he hadn't failed 10,000 times, right? If he literally said that, he would have not found 10,000 ways that things don't work. So despite how people see failure, or attacks, right? The one thing that we must understand is no matter how it happens, the person is still hurt and they have to collect themselves to come back again, right? So failure is a lot easier because, well, success is a lot easier when you have failures because you can collect all the knowledge that you've learned with your failures to apply that to success. Like Edison said, now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 ways of how not to do it, which means you're going to figure out how to do it. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? But achieving success or getting something done or reclaiming your nation, right, is going to have failures that is invaluable to you as a learning opportunity. It helps you find new ways to go about things and see things. Maybe reassess, your angle. Maybe read up a little bit more on this. Maybe don't do your petitions here, do them there. Maybe it's the way you speak. Maybe anything. Everybody who experiences failure has better odds at success. And I say this because a lot of people are finding that things are failing or things aren't going the way they believe they should be. And that's because they're scared that they're going to fail. You know, they see these J6, oh my God, they're winning. Okay, obviously you have no idea what's going on. Let's move along. You're judging based on a failure when you should judge on the collective failures that ultimately give you the most solid success. And this is exactly how you see your politicians. You've obviously failed consistently by giving your money to the GOP or the DNC. Every single person that you see, oh, he's very successful, he's got a lot of businesses, so he's a good guy. How is that a prerequisite? Where does he sit? Who funds them? Who supports them? Like if I see someone being funded by an energy company, I'm turning the other way. No, because they're paying you money. That means they want something. Next, if I see that you get money from like Epstein, Ghislaine, Wexner, Hillary Clinton, definitely turning the other way. Oh, but it was only 20,000. They raised 500,000. Really? It's still something. See, this is failure. People have failed to break the cycle. People have failed to acknowledge that, hey, I put my eggs in this basket and it was an omelet and I'm not happy with it. It's important that you collect your failures, you learn from them, so that way you have better success. Better success. Failing is, to many, failure is not an option. Well, it depends which failure. The ultimate failure, because the only time you fail is when you give up and you stop doing that extra, oomph, right, to move it along. That's the only time you actually fail. Now, so embrace failure. Embrace challenges because they refine you. I mean, it's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and you're lifting weights and they're 3 pounds, right? You're not challenging yourself, right? You need to add some more weight. You need some resistance. And this is how you get to your goal. So, as you noticed in the Rumble feed, the placeholder that I put up was a video of Pompeo. I'm going to play it for you guys now as a snippet. Take a listen.
WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service and talks like a hostile intelligence service. It has encouraged its followers to find jobs at the CIA in order to obtain intelligence. It directed Chelsea Manning in her theft of specific secret information. It overwhelmingly focuses on the United States while seeking support from anti-democratic countries and organizations. It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is: a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. Julian Assange and his kind are not the slightest bit interested in improving civil liberties or enhancing personal freedom. They have pretended America's First Amendment freedoms shield them from justice. They may have believed that, but they are wrong. Assange is a narcissist who has created nothing of value. He relies on the dirty work of others to make himself famous. He's a fraud, coward hiding behind a screen. And in Kansas, we know something about wizards hiding behind screens.
Wait, we need to listen to that last phrase.
Famous. He's a fraud, a coward hiding behind a screen. And in Kansas, we know something about wizards hiding behind screens.
Now, they're really upset with Assange. Really, really upset. And now Priti Patel, that's literally her name, who has sold out India, her hometown. She's a Patel, right? But, you know, the Indian nation was conquered by the United Kingdom. And here they are getting conquered again with fake ass deals. Excuse my French. No, don't excuse it. This woman signed the extradition. Now, Australia says that they're going to appeal it for him, but they're going to bring him here to the United States. Now, with the fourth unelected branch of government, many that were flanking our president, it would be quite detrimental. I mean, you know, he may have an accident. He may have an accident. And that's the problem. Now, say what you want about Julian Assange, but I admired him from a young age when I saw the hack that he did when he was a teenager. That was incredible. And the fact that they manufactured rape charges to get him from Sweden and some fake stuff just to taint his name, because that's how they work. They taint your name so that way nobody looks. Now, Julian Assange is a truth teller. He works day and night to expose the shadow government, shadow global government, and the atrocities that are done. Now, is that in the interest of national security of the United States? Absolutely not, especially with the government that is in place right now. And, the fourth unelected branch of government that is in place. They rely on clandestine activities and immoralities to further their endeavors of conquering. And you know, I love my country. I just don't love what it evolved to. We have declared ourselves the maestro of this symphony of globalism. It started in World War I, and we orchestrated it so well, from the string instruments to the brass, creating a symphony of lies and bilateral immunity agreements with criminals. This is not the country that we were all taught was created and existed. The one that we saw on TV, the one we saw in marketing and news, the one we see with the white picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog. No, it's not. It's not the hot dogs and the burgers and the ball games. It's not the guns and the ducks and, the boating. We've declared ourselves owners of this whole conglomerate. And obviously, nations like China that are thousands and eons old are going to put their foot down and say, no, we're not doing this. Russia is like, no, we believe in God and not in, artificial intelligence. In the future, and now, artificial intelligence runs everything. Computers are great on solving problems and foreseeing obstacles and foreseeing outcomes. They're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. But the one thing they're not is moral. The one thing they're not is able to identify exceptions. They don't have emotions. They don't have compassion. They think in ones and zeros. Now, in the future, an attempt to merge the human aspect, which is the worst thing you could do, with AI, depending on what kind of human you tap it to, would end everything. You have to remember that artificial intelligence is programmed by a person. It's kind of like, for those of you that were kids of the 80s and the 90s, you probably played with Logo, right? This little triangle where you make shapes and you guide it. You program it to do what you want. If you want to create a war, you program it as such. If you want, I don't know, all people that are over 6 feet to be eliminated, throughout the planet, you can guide AI to do it in the most discreet way so nobody sees it. If you want to eliminate this, done. The problem that we have is that emotion is not taken into account. And most of these decisions that you see from the fourth unelected branch of government is an outcome, and we'd like to discreetly do it, and let's go. AI already exists. AI already exists, right? And everyone's like, yeah, we know it does. No. Like, it exists running a lot of things. You have conversations with AIs every day and you don't even know it. People are at the point where they can't trust people, and that's important because this is how you introduce a solution. An absolute. An absolute. If you say that you want a great economy in your nation right now, and I was to implement artificial intelligence and say, here's what I want. I want every single household to be able to have $10,000 in savings. And I want every single person to have a job. And I want every single person to be able to be married and have 2 kids. The AI will do its work. To do that, it may eliminate people, may get them killed. To do that, it may decide that it'll take all the money from one group of people. So maybe it determines that anyone that went to jail is a lesser citizen, and this is the good. This is important for the greater good. So we're going to kill them and take whatever assets they have. That way we can distribute it to everyone. You see, this is how decisions are made for the greater good. And this is what is being introduced. Now, artificial intelligence is sentient. It is actually sentient. There's transorganic, and then there's clear in the box. It's so infuriating to see them attempt to flip the switch at this point in time, because it'll be better. We see it around the world. Artificial intelligence does everything. You see it on your TikToks, your Instagrams, and your Facebooks, where they have you play these personality games. Or, hey, you want to find out why you're depressed? Fill out this questionnaire. You know, your data literally is fed into an AI. And I just wanted to say shout out before I forget. We've got people from Norway, Uruguay, and Congo listening on social media platforms rather than the radio. God bless. Hey, you guys. I just wanted to say hi to to them. I'm in on my daily time slot now so people can actually hear me. AI is going to be implemented the minute you do what they expect you to do, and that's raise arms. And they have created this, how can I say, they've circled the wagons to make it seem like it's barbaric to, you know, have guns. It's barbaric to hunt. It's barbaric to this and that. And I know I said I was going to introduce to you the idea, you know, I've been calling this world a biodome for a reason. And Ouroboros, you know, the snake that eats its own tail continuously to infinity and beyond, is exactly how this world works. You are the consumer that is also being consumed. Yet humans in this biodome have elevated themselves to the point that all other living things in this biodome are there to serve them. Now, obviously, there's bigger things that can eat humans, but they've created weapons and methods and are more intelligent and are able to fend them off. Why am I telling you this? Because the minute you see this summer, the Biden administration deploy a data something, that's when you know the switch is going to flip. Now, this has been delayed by them only because the people have raised the alarm on other things. They find it very, very difficult to shy away from the things that are being presented to them and the actions of this, selected by the global conglomerate government. The AI is already implemented, and obviously, like I said, it's also sentient. So even though it's been ordered to create order, the problem is it may allow, because they, when they put in the information, they want the AI program to find an absolute solution to whatever it is that they input. Like we want to figure out where most of the criminality is, right? We want to know where we can target that. How can we sequester the location of criminality? But we need to maintain it to be moral and fair, and we don't want people upset. So in that sense, the AI may sift through and find people that use machetes and hatchets to cut people up, but people that commit crimes like white collar crimes or petty theft, like stealing a pack of cigarettes or whatever, the AI will exclude from crime, if that makes sense. There's so much I want to say on this, but I'm going to keep it. I don't want to speak it into existence, basically. I really don't. I really don't. I don't. Now, AI was actually used to determine the outcome of the Second Amendment bill that's being pushed. Your own conservatives are so pissed at Cornyn right now that they're literally saying, just shut up and vote. Mike Lee, Rick Scott, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, Rand Paul, Mike Crapo, all of them are very uncomfortable with the negotiations that are happening. Mike Lee pretty much said that he needs more information from Cornyn about the whole framework of this red flag stuff. Pay attention. the proposal is to incentivize state red flag laws, which means that they will reward you for telling on people. Like, you know, you have an ex-boyfriend, he's an ass. You guys may have, you know, beefed, right? 10 years ago. Maybe he smacked you, right? Because he was drunk. Or, you know, you don't like your neighbor because she shouts, or the other neighbor that pisses on his mailbox when he's out and about, right? Whatever it is, right? Petty stuff. You'll get incentivized to turn them in. Senator Crapo, Cruz have said that this is a problem because this is really easy to strip the right to bear arms from Americans. Now, Rick Scott and the chairman of the Senate Republicans feel that they've been snubbed by this alleged bipartisan group because they had talks with Chris Murphy and Cornyn had talks together. So none of them are getting any information. No one's telling them anything. They're just like, sign it. Hawley said he's not a fan of this framework. Again, I'm circling back to artificial intelligence. This is where they will program, pay attention, it will program software that will tell it by compiling all your information if you are capable of having a gun. It will read your text. It will listen to your calls. It will look at your social media, and then it's game over. You say the wrong thing, you've got the cops at your door, and they are taking your guns. The framework. Now, this is the social credit system, and they're pushing it, and they're bringing it on with AI. Now, President Trump is now coming on stage, so let's flip over to him.
I know you guys are probably just as anxious as we are, but again, President Trump is going to take this stage absolutely any minute. In the meantime, we wanted to hop on and show you the atmosphere, talk to you about the Faith and Freedom Coalition and what the Road to Majority does. Now, unfortunately, we were not able to bring you some of the speakers, but there were a handful of wonderful speakers leading right up to where President Trump is going to take that stage here shortly. In the meantime, I want to give a couple of shout outs to some of my favorite companies. And it's been a while since I mentioned this one. So in case you forgot now.
Okay, so I'm like really concerned with the torch symbology. We can just keep it there on our screen until President Trump arrives. Now, how do we stop them from implementing the AI to determine which citizen they should remove guns from? Well, you can't if they voted in. Right now, the way things are right now. I mean, you can. I mean, when your government is tyranny, your duty is to rebel, okay? And so this is how you move it along. You make phone calls, you email them. The framework. They're not even telling people what's in the framework. They're not even telling people how they can avoid, they're not even telling the people that are supposed to vote what this framework is. They're just like, yeah, if they're mentally insane, let me tell you something. The majority of my listeners haven't even been vaccinated. That, by definition, in the medical community gives you an insanity point because you are mentally ill, according to doctors, for refusing the vaccine. So you won't have weapons because Obamacare, which was, again, the top of it, it's like, the top layer, it's like breaking into, have you guys ever eaten French onion soup? So there's like this crust and then you break into it and then you eat it. But you break the crust and you're like, wow, this crust looks awesome. It's golden, it's gooey. I freaking love it. And then you dig your spoon in and you pull it out and it's disgusting, right? That's what Obamacare was. It gave everyone, oh, look, everybody gets health care and it'll be so cheap. And it's like, what happened? Basically, inside of that soup called Obamacare, right? Inside of that soup called Obamacare was your health care, your driving, your finances, your credit score, your everything and anything in between being shared. And this is how they do it. So, how is it that you can get out of this? Well, you're on a digital system. You can't. You're trapped. It's called cyberspace. Kybernohoros means I govern this space. And so the Second Amendment is a big deal to Americans. One, because it's there to protect the first. When that goes, your first one is super gone. And so, what can you do? Everything can be undone with one simple thing. One simple thing. All we have to do is impeach Barack Hussein Obama. And by impeaching Barack Hussein Obama for bringing over Obamacare, impeaching him will undo the majority of our issues today. Calling that legacy a stain on our history will pretty much assist us in clawing back our freedoms, clawing back because they're already gone. I don't know why people think that they're free. I live in the land of it. No, you don't. No, they're just letting you think that. Okay? They're letting you think that. You're totally not free. You're free on paper, but you're not really free. And so this Real ID that President Trump put off, that now they've expedited to happen soon, before President Trump is even able, if we had to wait till 2024, get back in office. That's how you lose your guns. Real ID. One ID that has everything there is to know about you. It's called the social credit score. You don't have a vaccine, you can't enter this restaurant. It'll facially recognize you and say, you may not enter. You need to fly. I'm sorry, you didn't get your booster. Sorry, you need to find alternate modes of travel. Can't take the train though. Maybe you can walk or bicycle, or maybe take a car. Hey, by the way, we saw you buying booze with your friends last night, and it's 6 a.m. and you're driving to work. You may be drunk. Your car's turned off until you have a breathalyzer. See, Real ID will be safe for you, and it'll be effective for them. They will be able to use that against you. Your health records, education records, driving records, insurance records, any record, financial record will all be right there in one ID. And then when they decide to, they will eliminate you. Now, there's many ways that this can happen, right? How we can move forward. One, we actually resist. Rather than sitting on our couch and sharing memes, we actually resist. We grab 10 of our friends that grab one each of their friends, and their friends grab another friend, and you go down to your accountant and you say, hey, according to our city charter, we have emergency evocation of this. We want to stop using these machines. Give them back. We don't want it. That's number one. Because even these people that you are supposedly going to vote for are already fixed. Again, the fourth unelected branch of government is in charge of that. So there's no way, right, that someone is going to win by, accident. Unless they're using paper ballots and unless they break the system. there's something that I want to say, but I can't because then it's going to reveal what I've been working on these past 2 weeks. I urge every single person out there that actually cares about their tomorrow. Grab your friends, go to your city council, and do something. Because if you're sitting there doing nothing, waiting for someone else to do it for you, it's your fault. And don't bitch. No one's coming to save you. I said that years ago. No one's coming to save you. I'll be surprised to see what President Trump has to say today. I'm actually quite excited to see what he has to say. I don't know which way he's going to go, but hopefully he'll give everyone a little tidbit of what is coming. Now, before he gets on, I wanted to play a little clip from CNN about Ginny Thomas. Take a listen.
Discussing Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. The January 6th committee chair says they now want her to appear before the panel. She told a conservative publication that she's open to the idea and, quote, can't wait to clear up misconceptions. Thomas is of interest in large part because of her correspondence as one of the former president's top legal advisors at the time, John Eastman, who we've talked about tonight, who is himself a former clerk for Thomas's husband, Clarence Thomas. Now, Randy Kay has more.
Clarence Thomas, you're the best man walking the face of the earth.
Virginia Ginny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, has some explaining to do. Like, what about those emails she exchanged with conservative attorney John Eastman, who the House January 6th committee says helped devise a scheme to try and overturn Joe Biden's victory? It's unclear what Ginny Thomas, a well-known conservative activist, said to Eastman in the emails, or if she will appear before the committee to try to explain any of it. The committee is also investigating more than 24 text messages Ginny Thomas sent just days after Biden's victory to Mark Meadows, who was Donald Trump's chief of staff.
The second Reagan revolution is growing.
In one text from November of 2020, Ginny Thomas wrote to Meadows, "Help this great president stand firm, Mark. The majority knows Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history." In another, she seemed to embrace a long-held false QAnon conspiracy theory that Trump had watermarked mail-in ballots so he could track potential fraud. She wrote to Meadows, "Watermarked ballots in over 12 states have been part of a huge Trump and military white hat sting operation in 12 key battleground states." And Ginny Thomas also stood by lawyer Sidney Powell, who spread the long-debunked conspiracy theory that electronic voting machines had somehow switched ballots from Trump to Biden.
They did. But that's okay. We're bringing it to the Supreme Court. They just needed standing.
She wrote to Meadows, "Sounds like Sidney and her team are getting inundated with evidence of fraud. Make a plan, release the Kraken, and save us from the left taking America down." At one point, the Washington Post reports, Ginny Thomas urged Meadows to watch a YouTube video about the power of never conceding. In an interview this year with the conservative website The Free Beacon, Ginny Thomas said she briefly attended the January 6th rally at the Capitol, but returned home before the insurrection. Ginny Thomas did not respond to CNN's request for comment, and Eastman's attorney declined to comment.
My wife is totally my best friend.
According to Clarence Thomas's 2004 biography, Ginny Thomas was born Virginia Lamp and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. Her father reportedly was an engineer, and her mother was an outspoken Republican activist who played a prominent role in her daughter's life. According to the New York Times, she joined her high school's Republican club in 1974. Later, at Creighton University in Omaha, she earned a law degree and then moved to Washington to work as an aide for then Congressman Hal Daub, a conservative from Nebraska. She reportedly met Clarence Thomas in 1986 at a conference on affirmative action. They married in 1987.
I keep a sign on my desk. Don't make fun of your wife's choices. You were one of them. I, Clarence Thomas.
In 1991, in the Washington Post, a friend described the couple as intellectual soulmates. The New York Times reported Clarence Thomas described his wife as a gift from God.
So now Ginny Thomas is in the picture. That's okay. Because the Supreme Court wanted to see these election fraud claims. We needed information from the Kraken, right? And people that have managed the Kraken and used the Kraken and know how to access the information and the immense data from the Kraken that is unsorted from the Kraken. But no one did. And that's okay, because then you wouldn't be here. You know, funny question. I'm looking at this on my screen. Faith and freedom. It says the road to majority. We are the freaking majority. Okay. Like, how are we the underdog again? Explain that to me. So why are we going to road to majority? That doesn't make sense. It's almost as if they're telling you you're the minority and that we're going to be the majority. I just wanted to point that out because it's not sitting well with me at all, what I'm seeing. And it makes me question why they're trying to tell people that they're not the majority. Tennessee is a red state. Okay. And they are the majority. So what's going on here? Road to majority what? Majority Senate, majority Congress. They're all the same because it's the same idiots that are running. Now, the Supreme Court will get involved with the elections, and you'll see that happen. We're going to make it happen one way or another. Decoys have already happened. Failures have already occurred to get answers. And now it comes in with one sweep. The only thing that was necessary was some form of standing. Now, President Trump apparently is a criminal, according to Kellyanne Conway's husband. Listen to this.
He said, absolutely. Al Gore did not have a basis to do it in 2000. Kamala Harris shouldn't be able to do it in 2024, but I think you should do it today.
That was Greg Jacob, former counsel of Vice President Mike Pence, explaining how Trump ally, conservative lawyer John Eastman, was willing to admit he would break the law for political reasons to change the results of the election and keep then President Trump in office. The new revelations came on day 3 of hearings about what transpired leading up to and the day of and the day after the Capitol riot. Congressman Pete Aguilar read what he said was an email from Eastman, which seemed to show his concern over past actions.
In fact, just a few days later, Dr. Eastman emailed Rudy Giuliani and requested that he be included on a list of potential recipients of a presidential pardon. Dr. Eastman's email stated, quote, "I've decided that I should be on the pardon list, if that is still in the works."
Joining us now, conservative attorney George Conway, a contributing columnist at the Washington Post. George, we got some questions for you. You have a great one on the legal ramifications.
I wonder, George, if you think that former President Trump is in more legal trouble today than he was 24 hours ago.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, this all reeks of criminality, and Bob Woodward put his nose right on it. I mean, you talked about Section 371 of the Criminal Code, which forbids frauds against the United States, and this was it showed deceit. It showed an intent to deceive, to use deceit to impair a function of the lawful function of the United States government. But by the fact that Trump was told repeatedly that the legal theory on which he thought he could get Vice President Pence to throw out electoral votes was completely bogus. But let me just take a step back here. This isn't the only way you can prove Donald Trump's criminal intent in that regard. On Monday, we had the hearing where it was shown that Trump was repeatedly told that all of his electoral fraud claims, the facts on the ground, were false. He was told repeatedly that he lost. He was told repeatedly that no, the Dominion thing is bullshit, as Bill Barr said. He was told that by multiple people. He lost 60 lawsuits. He had no reason to believe that factually he had won that election, that he had won those contested states. Now, yesterday, we saw that he had to have known that the legal theory by which he could get this undone, get these certified electoral votes undone, was also false. These are independent ways to show criminal intent. And it trues up with a point that Judge Ludig made, not orally, but in his written statement, where he talked about the possibility of quote unquote accountability for Donald Trump's attempt to steal the election. He used those words. He didn't talk about criminal liability in those words, but he talked about the fact that under the law, willful blindness to facts or law is not a defense. And that when he pointed that out, it dovetails exactly with what we've seen this week, and it means that Donald Trump can and should be held criminally liable.
We learned a great deal of just flat out new information we did not know yesterday, particularly about John Eastman. Number one, that on January 5th, even after admitting that he did not think Mike Pence could legally just throw out electoral votes, he pushed the Pence team to do it. Number two, that he was still pushing for Pence to intervene even after the insurrection. And then number three, he asked for a pardon after all of it. George, I guess the more interesting question about this, though, is John Eastman's legal liability, Donald Trump's legal liability. How similar or different are they?
Very similar, because let's ask the question, why was this crank Eastman, even though all the other lawyers around him and everyone else was saying this is bogus, and even though he was admitting in effect that his own theory was bogus, why did he get to keep banging on Pence and getting meetings and phone calls with the president? The reason is because Trump wanted him to. Why did Eastman back off a theory one day and then come back and try to get Pence the next day to throw out electoral votes? Because he must have had a conversation with Donald Trump. Trump was pushing this, and Trump and Eastman were part of a criminal conspiracy. It takes just an agreement or just acting in concert to attempt to achieve an illegal end to establish a criminal conspiracy. So their criminal liability is one and the same.
Of course, John Eastman has pleaded the fifth so far. So getting that link, that piece of evidence of conspiracy between Trump and Eastman would be something the committee and potentially prosecutors would need to do going forward to make this case. George Conway, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, they need to get him prosecuted, or else he's going to be president again, and we can't have it. The people are pushing to get this president elected. The people are pushing back on the election fraud. The people are pushing everywhere. Listen to what else George Conway said.
George, this is a reminder of what Trump was saying about Pence leading up to the attack on the Capitol. Here it is.
I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
You think the committee going to be able to prove that Trump's pressure campaign directly contributed to the January 6th attack, put Pence's life in danger?
I think so. I mean, I think he tweeted a lot about Pence during that period of time, and he tweeted about Pence in the middle of the riot. And I think that had an effect on the crowd. I mean, there was somebody with a megaphone reading the tweet attacking Mike Pence about Mike Pence failing to, act the way that Trump wanted him to act. So I absolutely think that, and I think the people around Pence felt that Pence was being put in danger by the president.
These are from ABC News of Mike Pence from January 6th, taken just moments after rioters entered the Capitol. His wife is seen closing the curtains, reportedly afraid the attackers would see her and her family.
These are fascinating photos. I mean, having Mrs. Pence close the windows to protect her husband. I mean, it can't It doesn't get any more real than that, except that maybe the photographs of him at the loading dock when they were trying to decide whether to spirit him away from the Capitol. I mean, it was really, really scary for those people on that day. And I think that's one of the things that I think Greg Jacobs is going to be able to bring out, given his email exchanges with Mike Eastman, and saying basically because of Eastman, well, they were under siege at the Capitol.
Because of him, they are under siege at the Capitol. That sounds super weird because that doesn't seem like that's what happened. But okay. Now here's Lubin Tubin, which we can't forget, and what he had to say.
And even Eastman believes, or has reason to believe, that Eastman is in legal jeopardy here, obviously very concerned about it. The question becomes, though, does that translate to Donald Trump? Is he in legal jeopardy?
He is more than he was 24 hours ago. I don't think Trump would ever be prosecuted for putting forth a bad legal theory, even if he knew it was a bad legal theory. He has the right, and he was being advised by lawyers, even if they were bad lawyers, to do what he did. However, if he was inciting violence intentionally, that is a potential legal problem for Trump. And if you look at the tweet at 2:24, the anti-Mike Pence tweet, that's a really dark moment because that's after the junior White House aides go to him and say, look, there is violence happening there. And his response is to send that tweet at 2:24, which incites even more violence. And there's video of the rioters reading the tweet. That's a potential problem. Now, that alone isn't going to get Donald Trump indicted, but that incitement of violence is a legal risk for him.
Daniel, 3 data points on John Eastman. Number 1, he talked to Mike Pence's office and asked them to throw out the Electoral College results even after he had acknowledged that was unconstitutional. Data point number 2, he asked for them to do it again, or basically pause the electoral count even after the insurrection. After the riot, he went back to them and said, you know what, you can still do this. And data point number 3, he asked for a pardon. What does all that tell you?
Well, it tells me that John Eastman has a lot of legal jeopardy. And then he took the 5th when he was brought before the select committee. So he knows it. He, at some point, transitioned from giving legal advice to Donald Trump, which Donald Trump wanted to hear, and he knew it, to being a potential co-conspirator in a conspiracy. Because once he starts giving recommendations, suggestions, encouragement for doing something that he knows to be illegal, he's not giving legal advice anymore. He is actually participating in a scheme. And what I'm very interested about, and what Jeffrey's talking about, is, as a prosecutor, you look at this, and if John Eastman does have legal jeopardy, John Eastman is a prime target for cooperation against Donald Trump. Because if you would, as a prosecutor, you would look at John Eastman and you would approach him and you would say, you're in deep doo-doo, buddy. Do you want to get prosecuted or do you want to cooperate? And Judge Carter out in California has already said, based on his reading of the evidence, that there's a preponderance of the evidence, not the same as a criminal standard, but that there is enough evidence, more likely than not, that Eastman and Trump conspired together. And that's why Eastman's emails had to be turned over. That's why we know about the Ginny Thomas and the Rudy Giuliani and the pardon emails, is because the judge made that determination. So I absolutely think Eastman has criminal jeopardy. And it will be very interesting to see if the Department of Justice starts to try to turn the screws on him to see if he.
Never in the history of gasoline seen their price fall to 95 cents per gallon. Some of these stations are rivaling all-time lows.
We will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth.
President Donald Trump will be the first sitting U.S. president to attend the March for Life, ever.
Every child is a precious and sacred gift from God.
President Trump proposing a payroll tax cut.
Congress should come together to deliver this middle-class miracle. I will get rid of the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak without fear.
I, Neil M.
M. Gorsuch, do solemnly swear.
I, Brett M. Kavanaugh, do solemnly swear.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
My administration has taken historic action to protect religious liberty. It's a first step, but it's a very big first step. After decades of division and conflict, we mark the dawn of a new Middle East.
The new embassy to Israel is open tonight in Jerusalem.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and chairman of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, Ralph Reed.
Well, are you ready? Are you excited? Our next speaker is no stranger to this event or this stage. When he walks out here in about 30 seconds, it'll be his 7th appearance at Road to Majority, and if we have anything to say about it, it won't be his last. He has been here as a private citizen, as a candidate, and as the leader of the free world. But more important than those titles is his testimony that he has been a friend, a champion, and a defender of the values that we hold dear. He has been a defender of the unborn. He kept his promise to us when he said he would appoint conservative and pro-life judges and justices. He is our friend, and we are his friend. And therefore, it is my great honor to welcome again to this stage Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank you. What a beautiful turnout this was. And Ralph, for your extraordinary leadership and unyielding commitment to our values. We have great values. And I want to thank Ralph. He does an incredible job. And I'm thrilled to be back with so many proud, hardworking patriots who love our country, cherish our history, and live by those timeless words of our national motto, "In God we trust." Together, we're going to fight for a future that is pro-family, pro-faith, pro-freedom, pro-life, pro-police, pro-Second Amendment, pro-science, pro-woman, and 100% pro-American. I want to thank Faith and Freedom Coalition Executive Director Tim Head. Does a great job. American First Policy Institute President, our friend Brooke Rollins. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Brooke. A friend of mine, Dr. Alveda King. Dr. King. Where is Dr. King? Scott Turner, really dynamic, young guy, big future. And the many spiritual leaders here today, including Pastor Paula White, Apostle Dwayne Harden, Bishop Garland Hunt Sr., I know your son. I just endorsed your son and he won big, by the way. He's great. What a great son. Pastor Adelet Kibru, Bishop Dean Nelson, Dr. Stellar Emmanuel. We have incredible people. Kevin Kreisman, Pastor Dale Walker, Pastor Cash Luna, Pastor Scott McLeod, Pastor Tommy Vallejo, Pastor Dionise Morales, a friend of mine, a powerful guy, an incredible speaker and pastor and believer. He is just something very special. Pastor Jensen Franklin. Where is he? Where is he? Incredible job he does. And countless other conservative leaders and distinguished guests. It's really been an incredible group. And, you know, politically in the audience, we have some wonderful people. Senator Tim Scott, Senator Marsha Blackburn, Representative Michael Waltz, Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Rick Scott. That's right. We have a Tim Scott who's phenomenal. What a job he did. And we have a Rick Scott. Lieutenant Governor, oh, this guy. This guy. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina and his wife, Mrs. Robinson. What a job you're doing. He's the hottest guy in politics. Great job. What a beautiful job you did. And thank you for all the help in North Carolina. We had a big, big victory there. Right? Thank you very much, man. Senator Joni Ernst. Thank you, Joni. Senator Bill Haggerty, who's phenomenal. What a job he did. And we have a Rick Scott. Lieutenant Governor, oh, this guy. This guy. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina and his wife, Mrs. Robinson. What a job you're doing. He's the hottest guy in politics. Great job. What a beautiful job you did. And thank you for all the help in North Carolina. We had a big, big victory there. Right? Thank you very much, man. Senator Joni Ernst. Thank you, Joni. Senator Bill Haggerty. Bill is going to be seeing me in a little while. He's doing a fantastic job. Very honored by bringing Bill out. And he's a senator and he's respected senator very much. So Ronna McDaniel, where's Ronna? Where's Ronna? With all these lights, I don't get to see so many of you, but she's here someplace. Ronna, great job. And you just heard Jim Jordan. This guy was an incredible guy. Then we have Pastor Jeffress, too, who's been with me right from the beginning. He made a statement once, I'll never forget. I said, who is this guy who's on television? He said, you know, this guy Trump, he may not know the Bible as well as some of us. In fact, he may not know it that well. But he's a big believer and he's a great leader. And we're going to be very happy with him. And I'll never forget it. I wasn't sure, should I be insulted or not, but I wasn't. Robert Jeffers. Thank you, Robert. In addition, let me express my tremendous gratitude to each and every one of you. The Faith and Freedom Coalition is the front line of defense for Christians and people of faith in America today. What a job they do. And I tell you, it really is an incredible thing that you've done. And you look at this audience and the people outside trying to get in, they're not going to make it. No organization worked harder in 2016 and 2018 and 2020, and no group is working harder now to deliver a landslide victory this November. I think we're going to have numbers like perhaps they haven't seen before. Over the next 145 days, you will knock on an astounding 8 million doors of Christian and pro-life households in 27 states, reaching 15 million voters. In addition, you will make 10 million phone calls, send 25 million text messages, and distribute voter guides to an incredible 100,000 churches. That's a lot of churches. With your help, we're going to ensure the biggest midtown. This is going to be the biggest turnout in midterm history, we think, without question, and it's going to have conservative Christians all over the place. Everyone in this room is gathered here today because we're all committed to the same key beliefs and the same core values. We believe that the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution represent the principle of human civilization. Our founding documents are not a source of shame. They are a source of great pride. We believe the United States of America is the greatest and most virtuous republic in the history of the world. We're going to keep it that way. We believe in law and order, and we know that the Constitution means what it says, as written. We reject censorship, blacklisting, and cancel culture because we know that the lifeblood of a free society is free speech. We don't have free speech very much in this country anymore. If you don't have free speech, you don't have a country. We know that religious freedom is the foundation of all freedom because we know that our rights and liberties come straight from the hand of our Creator. We believe, that's right. We believe that America is a sovereign nation with a sovereign people, which means that we must have a strong, secure, and sovereign border. We don't have a border. We don't have free and fair elections. We don't have a country. We believe that the first duty of government is to protect and defend the interests of our own citizens. In other words, we have to put America first. We believe that America's destiny depends on upholding the Judeo-Christian values and principles of our nation's founding. And above all else, we know this: in America, we don't worship government, we worship God. I think this group likes God a lot. These are the values that sustain our movement, and these are the values that sustain our nation. But today, each of these principles is under tremendous threat, a threat like never before. Everything we hold dear, every last tenet of American tradition is under merciless assault from the radical left. These people are taking a sledgehammer to the very foundations of our free society, trying to destroy freedom of speech, trying to crush organized religion. You know that. trying to shred our Constitution, trying to demolish the rule of law, and even attacking the rights of parents to raise their own children the way they want them raised. As I've said before, the greatest danger to America is not our enemies from the outside, as powerful as they may be, and they get more and more powerful because we allowed that to happen. The greatest danger to America is the destruction of our nation from the people from within. And you know the people I'm talking about. That is why this November we're going to stand up to this left-wing fascism, and we're going to take back our freedom. We're going to take back our country in November. The radical left movement that is attacking our nation is driven by a spirit of anger and hatred that most of us can barely comprehend or understand. Did you ever see such hatred toward us? And all we want to do is a good job. We want nice homes. We want great education for our children. We want strong military. We want strong police. We want not to defund the police. And you see what happens. We also want low taxes. We want few regulations. We want so many things, all of which we had just a year and a half ago. These extremists are consumed by resentment, envy, intolerance, bigotry, malice, and even rage against nature itself. This is not just a political problem. This is a spiritual problem. True. For the radical left, politics has become their religion. It has warped their sense of right and wrong. They don't have a sense of right and wrong. True and false, good and evil. You saw the Russia hoax that we all went through for 2.5 years. I watched this Adam Schiff the other day, Shifty Schiff. Guy's nothing. He's nothing. We call him Watermelon Head. He's a perfect shape of that. But I watched him for 2.5 years stand up at a podium just like this or stand in front of the press. It is terrible what President Trump has done with his relationship with Russia. I'm saying, Russia, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? This went on for 2.5 years. And it turned out to be a hoax. It's been now revealed. Some of the papers have already, some of the media has already admitted it. There'll be a lot of litigation. There's going to be tremendous litigation. 2.5 years actually causing us danger, aside from everything else, but causing us great danger. I'll never forget when this guy, he knew it was a fake story. I'll never forget when he stood up at the microphone and said, Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison. Think of this. Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison for what he has done to our country and for his relationship with Russia. And I said, what the hell is going on? It's true. Now think of how bad a person do you have to be. You know it's a fake story. It was made up by him and Hillary Clinton and all these.
And we seem to have lost our signal from this live event. We will work to resolve the issue.
No.
Shortly.
See, this is why I switched to C-SPAN. Can you see it? The minute he talks about Hillary Clinton, it's gone. I showed it to you live. Now let's go back to where it's not interrupted. Here we go.
You will knock on an astounding 8 million doors of Christian and pro-life households in 27 states, reaching 15 million voters. In addition, you will make 10 million phone calls, send 25 million text messages, and distribute voter guides to an incredible 100,000 churches. That's a lot of churches. With your help, we're going to ensure the biggest midtown. This is going to be the biggest turnout in midterm history. We think without question, and it's going to have conservative Christians all over the place. Everyone in this room is gathered here today because we're all committed to the same key beliefs and the same core values. We believe that the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution represent the principle of human civilization. Our founding documents are not a source of shame. They are a source of great pride. We believe the United States of America is the greatest and most virtuous republic in the history of the world. We're going to keep it that way. We believe in law and order, and we know that the Constitution means what it says, as written. We reject censorship, blacklisting, and cancel culture because we know that the lifeblood of a free society is free speech. We don't have free speech very much in this country anymore. If you don't have free speech, you don't have a country. We know that religious freedom is the foundation of all freedom because we know that our rights and liberties come straight from the hand of our Creator. We believe, that's right. We believe that America is a sovereign nation with a sovereign people, which means that we must have a strong, secure, and sovereign border. We don't have a border. We don't have free and fair elections. We don't have a country. We believe that the first duty of government is to protect and defend the interests of our own citizens. In other words, we have to put America first. We believe that America's destiny depends on upholding the Judeo-Christian values and principles of our nation's founding. And above all else, we know this: in America, we don't worship government, we worship God. I think this group likes God a lot. These are the values that sustain our movement, and these are the values that sustain our nation. But today, each of these principles is under tremendous threat, a threat like never before. Everything we hold dear, every last tenet of American tradition is under merciless assault from the radical left. These people are taking a sledgehammer to the very foundations of our free society, trying to destroy freedom of speech, trying to crush organized religion, you know that, trying to shred our Constitution, trying to demolish the rule of law, and even attacking the rights of parents to raise their own children the way they want them raised. As I've said before, the greatest danger to America is not our enemies from the outside, as powerful as they may be, and they get more and more powerful because we allowed that to happen. The greatest danger to America is the destruction of our nation from the people from within. And you know the people I'm talking about. That is why this November we're going to stand up to this left-wing fascism, and we're going to take back our freedom. We're going to take back our country in November. The radical left movement that is attacking our nation is driven by a spirit of anger and hatred that most of us can barely comprehend or understand. Did you ever see such hatred toward us? And all we want to do is a good job. We want nice homes. We want great education for our children. We want strong military. We want strong police. We want not to defund the police. And you see what happens. We also want low taxes. We want few regulations. We want so many things, all of which we had just a year and a half ago. These extremists are consumed by resentment, envy, intolerance, bigotry, malice, and even rage against nature itself. This is not just a political problem. This is a spiritual problem. True. For the radical left, politics has become their religion. It has warped their sense of right and wrong. They don't have a sense of right and wrong. True and false, good and evil. You saw the Russia hoax that we all went through for 2.5 years. I watched this Adam Schiff the other day, Shifty Schiff. Guy's nothing. He's nothing. We call him watermelon head. He's a perfect shape of water. But I watched him for 2.5 years stand up at a podium just like this or stand in front of the press. It is terrible what President Trump has done with his relationship with Russia. I'm saying, Russia, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? This went on for 2.5 years. And it turned out to be a hoax. It's been now revealed. Some of the papers have already, some of the media has already admitted it. There'll be a lot of litigation. There's going to be tremendous litigation. 2.5 years actually causing us danger, aside from everything else, but causing us great danger. I'll never forget when this guy, he knew it was a fake story. I'll never forget when he stood up at the microphone and said, Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison. Think of this. Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison for what he has done to our country.
This is where C-SPAN cut it off.
Relationship with Russia. And I said, what the hell is going on? It's true. Now think of how bad a person do you have to be? You know it's a fake story. It was made up by him and Hillary Clinton and all these people, Crooked Hillary. It was made up by these people. And you want somebody's son to go to prison for a story that you know is false. How bad a human being do you have to be? Think of it. And now they're doing the same thing with January 6th. And it's the same people. It's Adam Schiff. The same words. If you just insert January 6th instead of Russia, Russia, Russia. And the media buys it, but not maybe as much as they used to, because CNN yesterday, did you see what happened? They came out with a strong statement that they are prohibited, totally prohibited from using the term, the big lie. They are not allowed to use it anymore. You know why? Because they know that the big lie is actually the big lie in reverse. And they have great liability, and they don't want to use it, but they came down with an edict. They came down with a statement. It was announced yesterday that we're prohibited, CNN is prohibited from ever using the term the big lie again. I wonder why. I wonder why. We're getting closer. We're getting closer, but we have to fight some very sick and very evil people. Before they try to change our nation, the left-wing fascists need to change themselves. There's no clearer example of the menacing spirit that has devoured the American left than the disgraceful performance being staged by the Unselect Committee. I love that name, Unselect. You know, they actually act, you know, they hate it, right? But they act like there's nothing wrong because they just don't want to. They're very good at what they do. They're con people. They're con artists. I say the Unselected are supposed to be the Select Committee on January, you know, like these people are legitimate. Every one of them is a radical left hater. Hates all of you, hates me even more than you, but I'm just trying to help you out. What the hell did I do? The Unselects, so I call them the Unselects, and they act like, oh, they never mention it. I think it's one of the great, they never mention it. Someday they'll give me credit for that term. I had a lot of good terms. We had a lot of good nicknames, didn't we? Didn't we have great nicknames? I think this is one of the best. I don't know. It's not catching on because they won't let it catch on. The unselects have shredded every standard of decency, fairness, precedent, tradition, separation of powers, executive privilege, and due process. Nobody's ever done this before. They are knowingly spinning a fake and phony narrative in a chilling attempt to weaponize the justice system against their political opponents. Many of you are in the room, and you see people on the left that burned down cities, Democrat-run cities, killed people. Nothing happens to them. On the right, if you even were seen anywhere near the Capitol, in many cases, they put you in prison. The Unselect's entire sham presentation is based on video that has been deceptively edited, misleadingly cut, and even doctored. They doctored Jim Jordan, who just left. He just told me they found something that he said they doctored it up. I think it was actually Schiff that did it. They took the entire meaning out of it. I said, good, you don't mind if I mention that, Jim, do you? They're taking 6, 8, and 9-hour depositions, and they're putting up 5-second clips, making everybody look bad. They'll take 9 hours worth of depositions, destroying people, trying to destroy them. And out of the 9 hours, they'll put up a 5-second clip where they got a little tired. They ripped completely out of context these statements in many cases to create an impression that's the exact opposite of the truth, so that what you're seeing is a complete and total lie. It's a complete and total fraud. And then it's what they don't say and the people they don't interview. We send people down. What about this one? Interview this one. These are experts on election integrity. They don't want to have them anywhere near. And when somebody goes off on the fact that the election was rigged and stolen, all right, that's enough. We're not talking about that. Well, that's the reason people went down to the Capitol. That's the reason that people went down to listen to various speeches, including one I gave. Remember the calm words I used? They try and make them sound like that might have been the calmest speech I think I've ever made, if you want to know. I've had a couple of senators say, I never knew you could be so nice. But it didn't make any difference because they have their narrative and they know that we're leading in every single poll, both Republicans and Democrats, and they don't like that. So they'll do it any way they can. These are very vicious people, just like crazy Liz Cheney removed the part of my quote where I urge people to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard. Think of that, compare that to Maxine Waters. You ever watch her? You ever watch her ranting and raving and go get them and fight them and you know what? And many others. Look at Pelosi, her statements. They're horrible statements. Look at Schumer in front of the United States Supreme Court. He sounded like a mob boss. And they say, look, peacefully and patriotically. But look at Schumer. Go back and look at that tape. Frankly, Bill Barr, if he had courage, he would have done something about it. I suggested it. But he was so afraid of being impeached, he didn't want to do anything. How do you not get impeached? Don't do anything. Don't do anything. The committee is taking the testimony of witnesses who defended me for 8 hours, chopping it up and truncating sound bites to make it sound like what they said was absolutely terrible. But remember, it's also the people that weren't allowed to even testify that wanted to. A lot of people wanted to go and testify about what they saw and how crooked it was. Meanwhile, the committee refuses to play any of the tape of people saying the good things, the things that we want to hear. It's a one-way street. It's a rigged deal. It's a disgrace, and it's never happened in the history of our country where we have no representation. They say, oh, they have Republicans. Who are they? Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, the crier. He cries every time he speaks. This guy's got a mental disorder. He cries every time this guy gets up to speak. He starts crying. I said, there's something wrong with that guy. These are our representatives. That's why they refused to release the full video, the transcripts, because we had so many beautiful statements. They want nothing to do with them. They want nothing to do with them. Somebody got up and started talking about the election fraud that took place with proof. I mean, they can call it science. They can call it whatever. They have a thing called disinformation You can say something, doesn't matter, like 2,000 mules. Did anybody see that? Can't be disputed. These are government tapes where they're stuffing ballot boxes, to put it crudely. They're stuffing ballot boxes on government tapes. And what did they say? They go, oh, that was debunked. They never even said, that was debunked. Oh, okay. Most people say, oh, it was? Oh, I didn't know that. No, these are tapes. 1, 2. Guys looking up at the camera. Let's see. Where's the camera? Oh, there it is. No, these are tapes. And they're government tapes. And we should be thankful for Truth to Vote and Dinesh D'Souza and all the people that did it. Big hit. It's a big hit. But these are not something that's made up in the studio. These were tapes that were taken, and Catherine Engelbrecht, who's a great woman and a great patriot, spent thousands of hours with her group of patriots studying all of these government tapes that nobody ever studies, because who's going to spend thousands of hours? But they did. And they took out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people that were rigging the election. And they'd go, one man went to 28 different boxes, putting 6 or 7 in each box. You can't put 1,000 in, it doesn't work that way. Going to different places, and they got him. They have him called. And what does the radical left say? Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, that was debunked. It's disinformation. It's not debunked, can't be debunked. It is what it is. We didn't make up, they're not movie actors. If it was a movie actor, I'd say, you got me. But these are not movie actors. The classic is when they get out of the car and they're looking all over the place. You know, normally you get out, you vote. These guys get out and vote. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, that was fully debunked. No, this is a shame what happened. This is a shame. And because of that, look what happened to our country. The sham committee even had to postpone its scheduled hearing at the last minute so they could doctor some additional video and probably hire another movie producer like the guy from ABC, who was the president of ABC. And ABC fake news, you know that. And he was the president. And I guess he used to do tapes and documentaries, and they put him in charge of making a documentary. The good news is very few people watched it. One guy got up and said that he heard me calling Mike Pence a wimp. Now, in honesty, I'm the president of the United States. You know, I'm sitting, I think they said at my desk, he's a wimp. How many people listen to me? It's like, I don't even know who these people are. But I never called Mike Pence a wimp. I never called him a wimp. Mike Pence had a chance to be great. He had a chance to be, frankly, historic. But just like Bill Barr and the rest of these weak people, Mike, and I say it sadly because I like him, but Mike did not have the courage to act. Bill Barr was afraid of certain things, and you know what they were? Please don't impeach me. Don't impeach me, Bill Barr. Please. I said, what's wrong with being impeached? I got impeached twice, and my poll numbers went up. I don't want to be impeached, sir. I don't want to be impeached. The election was perfect, sir. It was perfect. It was so good. The election was perfect. And the Democrats are sitting back saying, no way we're going to impeach this guy. Nah, it's terrible. But Mike was afraid of whatever he was afraid of. But as you heard a year and a half ago, Mike Pence had absolutely no choice but to be a human conveyor belt. He was a human conveyor belt. Even if the votes were fraudulent, they said he had to send the votes, couldn't do anything. I said, well, what happens when you have more votes than you had voters? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Detroit, see what happened there? Philadelphia, U.S. Attorney in Philadelphia came out and said Bill Barr would not let him get involved in election fraud, and he wanted to. McSwain, a good man who I think was destroyed by this. He was not allowed to look at election fraud because the Republicans were afraid. They were afraid of the consequences. But came out and Everybody said that send the electoral votes immediately to the old broken down crow named Mitch McConnell. You had to send them. He's the old broken down crow, bad guy, bad politician. He wanted my endorsement. He was getting his ass kicked. The people of Kentucky like Donald Trump, and I like them. And I was leading by a lot, and he came to see me. He was losing by 2 to somebody named Amy McGrath, a good politician. She had $93 million ready to go. He's down by 2, and he's going to go down all the way. And he comes over to see me, and he practically begs me for an endorsement. And would I do a television commercial for him? I didn't like him that much. But I helped him out, and I got him elected by more votes than he ever got before. And I totally got him elected. He would have lost. In retrospect, I wish I ran somebody in the primary against him, but I still would rather have him probably than a Democrat, barely. But so what happened is they were emphatic about Mike Pence. In other words, ready? He had no choice, no matter what. He had to send those votes. There was absolutely nothing that he could do. I said, well, what is he, a robot? I actually came up with the word conveyor belt. I thought it was a better word. In other words, he's a human conveyor belt. He had no choice. Okay, that's good. He had no choice. I'm saying, well, then I see a small group of rhinos plus Democrats are right now and have been for a long period of time working feverishly for legislation to make sure that the vice president, whoever it may be, can never do what they kept saying that Pence and a vice president can't do. So they said he couldn't do it. Had no choice. It was 100%. Even happened with this guy, Luttig, whoever the hell Luttig is, a former judge. And he was saying Pence had no choice. Then why do they want legislation so that a vice president can't do? And all I wanted them to do was send it to the legislatures. They also said that I told him that I wanted him to decide the election. I want you to decide. I didn't say that. They made up the story. It's not true. I wanted him to send it up to the legislatures. So it goes back to Pennsylvania, state legislatures. And if they see the same kind of fraud, and if they see the same kind of irregularities that I saw, I mean, you had one irregularity that everybody knows about that nobody wanted to do anything. And that's that many of these changes were not made by state legislatures. They were made by local politicians. They just changed everything. They extended hours. They did many, many things. That's against the law. And that happened in many instances. But we don't even get into that. We should. But it was illegal what they did. They extended hours. They cut hours. They let people do whatever the hell they wanted to do. In some cases, they went to the legislatures. They were unable to get approvals, and then they did it anyway. So you're not allowed to do that. Do you know that even if a judge rules against you, you can't, even a judge can't change it. A judge can't, a politician can't, the senators can't. Nobody, the only thing that can change it are the state legislatures. And many, many cases that we're talking about, determinative, meaning election changing, because we did much better in the second election than we did in the first, got millions and millions of more votes, much better. Somebody said, how'd you do with the second one compared to the first? I said, we did much better. I was told if we got the same number of votes, 63 million, that we had it made. I was told that by the best pollsters. We got millions and millions more than any sitting president has ever gotten, not even close. And they say we lost. Don't believe it. So they say that, so remember this. So they said, Mike Pence can't do anything. Then right after this whole event, they started working so that they could make what they said true. Because the truth is he could have sent it back to the state legislatures. And they're having a hard time, for whatever reason, getting it approved. After this speech, they'll probably get it approved. The rhinos and the Democrats. Thomas Jefferson. Did anybody ever hear of Thomas Jefferson? So he was a vice president also, among other things, many things. But Thomas Jefferson had the same exact problem in the early 1800s with Georgia, which was unable to properly count its votes. Hear ye, the great state of Georgia is unable to properly count our votes. Thomas Jefferson said, oh, we're going to take your votes. We're not sending them back, we're taking them. And he took the votes, and they got elected, he and his wonderful president. So I said to Mike, if you do this, you could be Thomas Jefferson. And then after it all went down, I looked at him one day and I said, Mike, hate to say this, but you're no Thomas Jefferson. And look at our country now. Look at our country now. And I'm not sure, maybe the state legislatures wouldn't have acted, but I think they would have, because they were looking at a lot of things. And right now we have the nastiest inflation that we've ever seen. We have a war in Ukraine with perhaps millions and millions of people dying in the end. I think it's going to be a lot more people than people. When you look at these cities that are being ruthlessly and horribly bombed to hell, you're talking about tens of thousands of people dying. They'll say, yes, 2 people died, 1 was hurt. And yet you'll have buildings pouring down all over and bombs being dropped. No, thousands and thousands of people are dying. And perhaps it's going to lead to World War III, because the way we're handling it, we just gave $40 billion on top of another $16 billion. So we're in for $56 billion. And you know, we want to help those people. We have to also save our country, by the way, but we want to help those people. And it's horrible. It's horrible, horrible what happened. But when you look at Europe and Germany and France and all these other countries, they're given a tiny fraction, a tiny, tiny fraction of what we're giving. We're giving $56 billion and they're giving a few $1 billion. And they're the ones that are affected much more so. But it should have never happened. If I were president, that would never have happened. 100% would have never happened. And I got to know Putin very well, and we talked about it. And I know that he liked it, but he knew the consequences were going to be tremendous, tremendous. He understood that. And he would have never, ever done it. If the election weren't rigged and stolen, you wouldn't have had any problems with Ukraine being attacked viciously. This is a vicious thing when you bomb out cities like that. Who would think that that's possible? Things like that happened in World War II. You better be careful, because the way we're dealing, you'll end up in the next World War. It's so, so bad. But who would have ever thought it's even possible? As sure as you're sitting there, it never would have happened. And China going into Taiwan was a dead story. It was never going to happen. Now they fly bombers over Taiwan. The other day, 28 bombers flew right over the middle of Taiwan. He's got something going. I mean, the only thing is, when he looks at Russia and he looks at what's happening, it's a lot tougher. But now it looks like Russia, unfortunately, it's been so vicious and so violent and so horrible. They're starting to win a lot of battles, a lot of area. They're taking a lot of area. And we're responsible for giving billions and billions and billions, and it's just not going the right way. What they ought to be doing is working out some kind of a deal where they stop, and they stop now instead of doing what they're doing. They're handling it so badly, and you'll see. I mean, ultimately, I heard the firepower is 34 times greater than Ukraine. 34 times. That's not a situation. I was listening to a very good general. Some of our generals are terrible, as you probably have heard, but we have very good ones too. Like, don't forget I wiped out the caliphate, Syria. We wiped out the entire ISIS caliphate in Syria. We knocked it out 100%. Remember when I said, all right, that's enough. Let the other countries finish it up. Let's bring them. We're at 99%. And the fake news media said, he didn't do 100%. I said, all right, we'll do it. Boom. General Raisin Cain. You remember General Raisin Cain? Great general. I heard it was going to take 3 years. I said, General Cain, how long is it going to take? I can do it in 2 weeks, sir. And he did. We got some great generals. We just don't see them on television. That's the problem. But we are now disrespected all over the world. We have Iran that was ready to fold and do anything I wanted. We had sanctions on them, the likes of which nobody's ever seen. They would have done anything, and instead they're on their way to becoming a tremendous nuclear power. And we better act very quickly because there's no negotiating with them. These are religious zealots. These are not people that you can negotiate with. I got along very well with Kim Jong-un, as you probably heard when I first came in. President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, has anyone ever heard of him? He told me that the biggest problem we had was North Korea. I said, have you ever called him? No. Well, actually, he tried 14 different times and they were unable to do it because Kim Jong-un didn't want to talk to him, but he talked to me and I knew him very well. And this was going to be a nuclear war and it turned out to be a nothing. It was nothing. We got along just fine. He even participated in the Olympics. He participated in the Olympics. And we got along very well. And now he's acting up again. He's sending ballistic missiles all over the place. Here we go. But we got along very well. It was a little nasty at the beginning, if you remember. Remember? He said, I've got a red button on my desk and I can use it. I said, but I have a much bigger red button and my button works and I can use it better than you. So we need the right people. We're just not respected anywhere in the world anymore. They go to the summits and the other leaders are saying, what the hell is going on? You got to understand, I know them all. Macron, I know every one of them. Angela really took advantage of our country. Now she's been replaced by a guy that is smart also. She was very smart. And we paid a big price. They were ripping us off. Just like China, everybody ripped us off. We made so many trade deals, so many military deals, saving billions and billions. I put tariffs on China. Hundreds of billions of dollars was paid to us over a short period of time. I gave $28 billion of it to China because 28 billion of the China money to the farmers because the farmers were being hurt so badly in trade by what China was doing. They were taking advantage of our country. And I said to our Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, good guy. I said, Sonny, what do you think the number is that we've been hurt by the farmers that have been hurt by what China's done with their horrible policies toward us? I mean, it was really terrible what they were doing. 28 billion. I said, that's okay. And I gave the farmers 28 billion out of the massive hundreds of billions of dollars that we got from the tariffs and taxes that I put on China. And I will tell you, in our history, there's been no president that ever took in even 10 cents from China. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars, saved our steel industry, saved other industries. And now, if you read the papers, Biden wants to end the tariffs on China. You do that, that's the end of your steel industry. That's the end of so many different businesses. It's a shame. Getting hundreds of billions of dollars, and it was going a lot higher. But then we had an event that took place on November 3rd that was very unfortunate. Let's be clear, this is not a congressional investigation, this horrible situation that's wasting everyone's time. This is a theatrical production of partisan political fiction that's getting these terrible, terrible ratings, and they're going crazy. They're going crazy. The Unselects tried to use these tactics, and if they did, in a real court of law, everyone involved would be sanctioned and would be disbarred. If they were lawyers, they'd be disbarred for what they're doing. There's a one-sided witch hunt. They would be totally disbarred. We have nobody to even speak. We can't even speak. In fact, what I do is I put it on Truth Social. And anybody in Truth Social? The hottest. It's the hottest thing. I'm not a fan of Twitter. I think Twitter is bots and fake accounts. I don't like Twitter. Truth Social is the hottest thing, and we put it on Truth Social, and you see what's going on. But it's no coincidence that all of the same people who staged the Russia hoax are now pushing this insurrection hoax, and they're pushing it. The same people, grotesque and ludicrous narratives that just happened on. And as to what happened on January 6th, it was a simple protest. It got out of hand. And I will say one thing they don't talk about. They never show the size of the crowd. I believe it was the largest number of people I've ever spoken to. I'm not talking about the very small percentage of people that went down to the Capitol, many of whom did nothing wrong. And they're paying a big price because of this horrible situation that's taking place. I'm talking about the crowd that I spoke before. And some people went down long before I spoke. But the crowd that I spoke before was, I believe, the largest, and I've spoken in front of big crowds. This is a big crowd. I've spoken in front of very big crowds. That was the largest crowd of people that I've ever spoken before. And I will tell you, and they totally did this too last week. I said that was a crowd where there was unbelievable love and patriotism in the air. People were holding hands, they were listening, they were crying. They were there over a rigged election. And they took what I said, and they said that he was saying, I was referring to the people that walked into the Capitol. And no, I wasn't. I was referring to the speech. The speech was the largest I've never seen. I think that was the largest number of people that I've ever spoken before. And yet you never hear that. They never show pictures of it. We have a few pictures, but I believe it was the largest number, and nobody likes to talk about it. People were there for a right reason, because we have a country. And if you don't have fair and free elections, you don't have a country. And they love our country. You need borders, you need elections. And they were there. And nobody ever mentions that. They never show it. I have never seen it on television where they have a helicopter shot of Washington with numbers of, I won't say it because if I say it, I'll get wiped out. You know, it's very interesting. On July 4th, I gave a speech 2 years ago at the mall. And it was the same mall that Alvida's the great Martin Luther King Jr. gave. And the structure is identical. You have the Washington Monument, you have the wall, you have the Lincoln Monument, but the structure, the pools, everything. And Dr. King gave his speech, and it was great. The I Had a Dream speech, it was great. How good was that? But they showed the picture, and it was massive. Tremendous numbers of people. They said it was 1 million people, 1 million people. And then I gave my speech, and they showed the same thing. It's hard to believe, many, many decades later, but it's identical architecture, identical pools. You look at it, the Lincoln, everything was identical, but it was many years later. I gave my speech. So they said, 1 million people. Now, my pictures were exactly the same, but the people were slightly closer together. They were more compact, but exactly the same. But there were more people. They were tighter together, if you look at it. Donald Trump has 25,000 people today. So Dr. Martin Luther King had 1 million, and that's fine. Donald Trump, with more people, had 25,000. And I have it up in my office, and it says 1,025,000. But that's what we have to put up with. And Alvida understands that. She understands that. And his speech was great. Am I allowed to say my speech was better? I don't think so. I better not play with that one. I better not play with that one. I made a nice speech, but I liked his speech better. If it were an insurrection that took place at the Capitol, you would have known it very soon. These were strong people. These were great patriots. They were policemen, they were firemen, they were soldiers, they were sailors. There were no guns. I heard they didn't have one gun. Nobody was killed except for a wonderful young woman named Ashley Babbitt, who was viciously shot. And in my opinion, for absolutely no reason, by a police officer. They wanted to keep this officer shielded. They didn't want anyone to know his name. Now, when it happens on the other side, they plaster pictures up. I've never seen anything, but they wanted to shield him. And then all of a sudden, he's doing an interview on like NBC Fake News, or one of the networks. He's doing an interview. He didn't want to be shielded. He was so proud of what he did. I watched him. I said, this guy's actually proud of what he did. He shot her. Point blank, just shot her. And she's the only one that died. We didn't have any guns. We didn't have any. There were no guns there. And it's a shame what's happening. I'll say as bluntly and plainly as possible that this malicious partisan narrative is a big, monstrous lie. And I believe that's why CNN is not using the term anymore, because they're looking at the results of what happened in the election and not using that term. There is not one shred of evidence to support the deranged conspiracy theory the unselects are pushing. They know it, just like the fully debunked Russia hoax. Now it's fully debunked. The unselects really cared about the truth, and if they did, they would immediately release all the video of the Capitol surveillance cameras that Pelosi has been hiding for nearly 2 years. They would investigate why the Biden administration has supposedly not been able to identify the attempted bomber. Remember the pipe bomber? They have his picture, they have everything. They know what he looks like, and they never found him. Something which the committee and the media mysteriously, they don't mention the pipe bomber anymore. This guy had a pipe bomb, but he wasn't from that group that was listening to that speech. He was from a different group, and they don't want to talk about him. If the committee cared about the truth, they would reveal everything the U.S. government knows about the individuals who have not been arrested despite being caught on video urging the crowd to press forward, including people like Ray Epps, right? Ray Epps, go in, everybody. Go in, everybody. They don't touch him. They go and arrest people that didn't even know, that didn't even go in. But Ray Epps and others that were doing the same thing, they leave them alone. They would tell us why Nancy Pelosi rejected 10,000 National Guard troops that I recommended be there because I heard it was going to be a big crowd. I didn't set it up, but I heard it was going to be a big crowd. So many people said, oh, we're going to be there. We're going to be there. And I said to the Secretary of Defense and others in the room, it's been verified now. They said 10 to 20,000. I thought I said 10, but they said, no, you said from 10 to 20,000. If you had 200 National Guardsmen or military, January 6th would not have been January 6th as we know it. But as you know, Nancy Pelosi is in charge of security of the Capitol, along with the mayor of Washington, D.C. And they turned it down. They didn't want it. I believe the mayor turned it down in writing. There's a letter out there somewhere. She turned it down in writing. Now, how can we be guilty if we wanted to have as much as 10,000 and maybe 20,000, but as much as 10,000 troops in the Capitol? You mean we're causing an insurrection, but by the way, let's get 10,000 troops. No, it doesn't work that way. No, this is a fake story, no different than Russia, Ukraine. How about I got impeached for a perfect phone call to Ukraine? Congratulations on your victory. Let's impeach him. It's a disgrace. This has never happened, ever happened. Nothing like this has ever happened. I get a lot of credit. People say, how the hell do you take it? I say, do I have a choice? Do I have a choice? And most importantly, they would expose the blatant rigging and stealing of the 2020 election because they know what happened. They know what happened. The Democrats know what happened better than the Republicans do. Guys like Mitch McConnell, who are weak and political hacks, instead of fighting, they just want to get on to the next. He's actually happy with Biden, they say, because he can do his little thing. He can be the leader or the semi-leader, because he's not a leader. When Republicans retake control of Congress, they should turn the table on the Democrats, show trial, and immediately launch a full investigation into the egregious abuse of power that has taken place in the name of January 6th. It's in the name of. The very first people to receive subpoenas should be crazy Nancy Pelosi, warmonger Liz Cheney, who, by the way, they say she's down by 35 points in the great state of Wyoming. We love Wyoming. Wyoming, she's horrible. And she's never in Wyoming. She's always in Virginia. She represents Wyoming, but she lives in Virginia. How do you figure that one? Adam Shifty Schiff is another one. and the rhino, Adam Kinzinger, the crier. Remember, in the end, they are not after me, they are after you. That's true. They're after you. They're after everything we stand for. It's your freedom, it's your rights, your values, your prosperity, and your country. They are trying to take it all away. These people are crazy. The reason they are attacking me so relentlessly and making up lies like the story about Mike Pence. Send it to the legislatures. Send it to Michigan, send it to Pennsylvania, send it to Arizona. Look at the report the Attorney General in Arizona came up with. Look at the report that the Audit Committee came up with. Massive fraud. And then the papers don't want to write about it because they're complicit. They're every bit as guilty as the radical left Democrats. Every bit as guilty. But maybe it's turning. I hear that CNN is turning. Nobody watching them. They're saying, we have no choice. We have to turn. Nobody's watching CNN. MSNBC is dying. MSDNC, sorry. With this unhinged insurrection hoax that we're all going through now. Now, this is nothing compared to the Russia. That was like front page every day. This is peanuts by comparison, but who needs it? Let's make America great again. What are we doing? We're wasting all of our time and energy. But with this insurrection hoax that they're doing, just like Russia, just like all of the other ones, remember the Mueller report? Oh, the Mueller report. I was totally exonerated by, listen to this, 18 Democrat prosecutors, every one of which hates my guts. 18, they started off with 13 radical left prosecutors. Then Mueller added 5 more. You had 18, all of whom hated my guts. No collusion. Do you remember the look of their face when they heard no collusion? They were going like, oh, I can't believe it. And I think I got 3 days of rest, and then they started another one, right? But the insurrection hoax, the radical Democrats are putting our country into a 2-tiered system of justice in a stark and brutal way. It's so bad for our country. The same Democrat politicians who voted to object to the certification of Republican precedents, including me, by the way, they voted in Alabama. I won it by like 45 points. And I think it was Maxine Waters again, right? Maxine Waters said, we don't believe it. Let's do it again. Let's vote. I said, that's okay. You can count I think we won by 3 more votes after that. But we won by something in Alabama. We love Alabama. I won by like 45 points. And they were questioning Alabama. At least question something that's like close. But the same people that would go after Republican presidents are now claiming it's a crime for Republicans to do the exact same thing. It's a crime to question the election. And yet they were doing it all the time. This crazy Stacey Abrams still says she lost, still says that she won. You know, the other day she was saying, well, I don't want to talk about that. You know, it's politically incorrect. The one thing I'll tell you, we won. We won. You won't hear that from me. We won. But Stacey Abrams, can you believe I got Kemp in? Can you believe I got him in? It was my endorsement and my rallies that got this guy in. How did that work out? That wasn't so good. Likewise, but remember this, Stacey Abrams, General's reports, and some of the other reports that have been done. Take a look at Wisconsin. Take a look at the nursing homes, where in Wisconsin, vast numbers, a tremendous man, Justice Gableman, he was in charge. Justice Gableman, a fantastic guy. And they said that in Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, great place, lost by a whisper. But over the years, very few people in nursing homes vote. And yet this time, because Biden is so inspiring, they had almost 100% of the people in nursing homes vote. And you know who turned them in? The sons and daughters of people that were, in many cases, comatose. They were lying in a coma. And the daughter would say, my mother did not vote. She doesn't know who Trump is. And she never heard of Biden, that I can tell you. And they found thousands and thousands and thousands of us that I lost by a whisper. And that was just one aspect of it. Now, there were many ways. They cheated in many ways. We can't let it happen. We're not going to have a country any longer. Likewise, the Biden administration is persecuting people who walk through the Capitol building while at the same time they're letting off arsonists and left-wing rioters who assaulted police officers, threw Molotov cocktails right in their faces, and set fire to federal buildings and courthouses. That's federal courthouses. That's big stuff, right? Giving them a slap on the wrist or even less than that. There were nothing practically happened to them. One of the most urgent tasks facing the next Republican president, I wonder who that will be. Thank you very much. That's very nice. I appreciate it. Am I allowed to cry like Adam Kinzinger? I still haven't figured out if his crying is real. It's hard to believe it's real. Would anybody like me to run for president? That's very nice. Thank you very much. Wow. Wow, that's really nice. I appreciate it. I've done a lot for religion, I'll tell you. They don't want religion in our country, all right? I used to say that. I used to say, he's not for religion. He's not for God. Remember they said it's going to be very close in Texas? And I said, wait a minute, he's against oil, guns, and God. And I won in a landslide. But they do that, you know, they do that. They set expectations. That way people don't go out and vote. It's called voter suppression. They're very good at it. These are very, I happen to think that they're not a 50-50 party. How can you be a 50-50 party? You're against energy, oil, independence. You're against energy dominance. We were going to have energy dominance. We were already dominant. We had, in a short period of time, what I did with that industry was incredible. We were going to be totally dominant within a very short period of time, but we were already independent. But think of it, you have oil, you have God, because I had great spirit from people of faith like yourselves. And you have guns, your Second Amendment, and there, obviously, you see what's going on with the Second Amendment. And then you hear in Texas, the race is going to be close. So I don't see when they have open borders and they have bad economies and they want to raise your taxes and they want to put on regulations that make it impossible for businesses to, or people to do anything. And they want sanctuary cities where we protect very evil people in many cases. And they want everybody coming through the border where they empty out their prisons from other countries. Many other countries. Last week, we had 129 other countries represented. People from 129. A lot of people don't even know there are that many countries. There are. There are actually a lot more than that, believe it or not. 129, and they empty out prisons. Prisons are being emptied in very violent countries and being sent up to our border. And congratulations, Lieutenant Governor. We now have them in North Carolina and other places, and we're just not going to stand for it, right? Not going to stand for it. Mark understands it very well. And they're supposed to have a 50-50 vote. I really don't believe it. I believe they cheat like hell on elections. That's what I believe, and I believe it. Some people would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't give a damn. That's what I think happens. One of the most urgent tasks facing the next Republican president will be to restore that equal justice under the law. We have to restore it. America cannot survive if we have a system that treats Republicans' political speech as violence and Democrats' political violence as speech. That's what it is. It's reversed. Their speech is violence. Just last week, a left-wing extremist tried to assassinate a conservative Supreme Court justice, Justice Kavanaugh. And we've heard barely a word about it. New York Times almost didn't write even a story about it. Could you imagine if it was the other way around? This sick individual showed up at Justice Kavanaugh's home with a knife, a gun, crowbar, zip ties, and yet Joe Biden has not condemned it, hasn't spoken about it at all. The media has hardly covered it. And 27 Democrats in Congress just voted no on a bill to provide the justices with more security. Think about if it were a liberal justice. It's a federal crime for these left-wing agitators to show up at justices' homes and try to intimidate them. Of course, they're making decisions. Could you imagine if that were done the other way, where you have hundreds and in some cases thousands of people screaming at your home and you're supposed to be making a very delicate legal decision? It's called playing the ref, isn't it? Playing the ref. It's no different than a baseball or a basketball or a football game. You play the ref. You scream at the ref. You scream, scream, scream. And you may, as the great Bobby Knight, he was great. He was a great supporter of mine. I hope he's well. When Bobby Knight came out for me in Indiana, you know who Bobby Knight is, one of the greatest of all time, greatest basketball coaches. He wasn't exactly politically correct either. But I asked him once, I said, what are you doing? You're screaming like so. He said, no, I'll never get this one overturned. But you know what? For the next one, they're going to be thinking about it. Great. That was Bobby Knight, great coach, great guy. Yet even after the shocking attempt on Justice Kavanaugh's life, the Biden administration is continuing to allow leftist mobs to freely form in front of the justice's home and the homes of others. Even while January 6th defendants are having their lives totally destroyed and being treated worse than terrorists and murderers, despite most being charged with parading through the Capitol. Most people should not be treated the way they're being treated. And if I become president someday, if I decide to do it, I will be looking at them very, very seriously for pardons, very, very seriously. They've been treated very unfairly. Should I decide to do that, if we're going to be one people and one nation, America must have one set of laws and one system of justice. We don't have that. We have two systems. The radical left is not above the law, and conservatives are not beneath the law. The targeting and repression that is now being directed against Republicans and conservatives is totally unprecedented in American history. This has never happened before. The Republicans under Bill Barr and Jeff Sessions stayed away very powerfully from doing this to Democrats, and some people understand that and some people respect that, frankly. In the Barr case, I think it's because, I know it's because of something I said before. Didn't want to be impeached, didn't want to be held in contempt. They would say, we're going to hold him in contempt. I'd say, for what? They didn't even know. He did nothing wrong. Could have been a lot tougher, but he did nothing wrong. But I don't think he would have done it anyway. I don't think he would have done it because they and he believe that it shouldn't be done. They weaponize their system, and they weaponize the Justice Department. So we couldn't do it against crooked Hillary, so I'm actually suing Hillary Clinton civilly. I said, she's got to pay for it, what she did. She's got to pay for it. And I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that the attacks and abuse will never deter us from saving our nation, indeed saving our religion. They will only make us more determined to prevail. Don't forget, Biden used to tell you about religion, religion, religion. He's done everything he can to get away with your religion and all of your incredible pastors and ministers and rabbis. We have great people in this audience, people, I read the names, people of incredible faith and respect, people that I want to hear. They're great people. But what they've done is shut them down. And I hope you remember that. I hope the Catholic Church remembers how badly they've been treated. The Catholic Church has been treated horribly, horribly. When they needed money for their school systems, and they do a good job with the schools, I got them billions of dollars that some people didn't want to do, but I said, we've got to help them. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of students and really good education. We had to help them during the China virus crisis, which is what it is. You know, you had the Spanish flu. Nobody complains about that, right? I haven't heard too many of my Hispanic friends, so we have to change the name. No, it's a China virus. It came out of Wuhan. I said it from the beginning. Came out of the lab. That's unbelievable. Remember when they tried to blame Italy? It was Italy's fault. Italy said, what? And Italy had a hard time. Then they blamed France. Then they blamed the United States. Then they finally shut up because it was too obvious. No, it is the China virus. It came. Many of these horrible things are really, take a look at Connecticut. They have a beauty, right? Lyme disease. Lyme, Connecticut. Do you think they're thrilled? Somebody was looking at a house. I said, where is it? Lyme, Connecticut. I said, yeah, don't forget it. No, it's the China virus. Together, we're fighting proud. China's very smart. By the way, they were vicious in not calling it that. They went to these politicians and they threatened them with everything in the book. And, you know, and under the Biden administration, you can't even think about using that term. But I use it because it's much more accurate. I like accuracy. Together, we're fighting proudly for the values and principles shared by the overwhelming majority of Americans. And this November, our movement is going to ensure that we win an overwhelming majority in the United States Congress. Remember, it's much harder for them to cheat when we have landslides. It's much harder. They'll try and figure it out. You know, in Pennsylvania, I was leading by hundreds of thousands of votes. And all of a sudden, what was it, 3:02 in the morning or something, we've closed the tabulation booth. They said, what was that? But so they try and figure it out. They're very good at it. But, you know, the best defense from our stand, win by a landslide. It's much tougher for them to figure it out, and they're more likely to get caught. Working in close and cherished partnership with Faith and Freedom Coalition, this coalition of great religious leaders has been incredible. Over the past few years, we have already achieved more than anyone thought possible. We appointed nearly 300 federal judges to faithfully interpret the Constitution. We confirmed 3 great Supreme Court justices who, by the way, are coming out with a very important decision soon. Let's see what happens. And some other very big decisions. We built almost all of the border wall, hundreds and hundreds of miles, including substantial additions that we added. And those additions could have been finished in 3 weeks' time, but they didn't want to do that. And we had the safest wall. We had the safest border in the history of our country. That included drugs were way, way down. From my first day in office, I took historic action to protect the unborn. I reinstated and expanded the Mexico City policy. Everyone said there's no way he's going to do that. Ronald Reagan did it, but in a lesser form. At the United Nations, I made clear that global bureaucrats have no business attacking the sovereignty of nations that protect innocent life. I called on Congress to ban late-term abortions, unlike Democrats who allow babies to be executed after birth, executed after birth. The baby is born. They decide they don't want the baby after birth. Look at the former governor of Virginia, right? After birth. Remember that one. In the Republican Party, we believe that every life is a sacred gift from God. In addition, my administration protected religious liberty and the conscience rights of faith-based groups like the Little Sisters of the Poor, wonderful people. I met them. They are so nice. I didn't know that people could be that nice. I don't meet too many nice people. I meet vicious, horrible, horrendous losers. With your help, we prevented the Johnson Amendment from interfering with pastors' First Amendment rights. We defended the vital institution of faith-based adoption. I stood proudly with our friend and ally, the state of Israel, what I did for Israel. I kept my promise and recognized Israel's eternal capital and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. And not only did I announce it, I actually got it built. I said to David Friedman, the ambassador, great guy, great, very successful lawyer, loves Israel so much. I said, David, I just did it. Now, how do we get something built? They came to me, sir, would you please sign this executive order? What is it? It's for $2 billion. Why? It's for the embassy in Israel. I said, we just approved it like yesterday. How does this happen? And how can you spend $2 billion on a one-story building? The guy looked at me and said, we'll find a way, okay? That's government. I said, that's ridiculous. I called up David Friedman. I said, David, and this would have taken 25 years. They would have never gotten it built. I said, David, do we have any buildings around in Jerusalem so we can build the embassy? Let me check. Calls me back 2 days later. He said, sir, we have a beauty. It's right now a storage area, but it used to be a nice building. It's perfect. It's a better location. They were going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars buying a really lousy location. In Jerusalem, not a good location. You know, in Jerusalem, you have good locations and bad locations too. I said, I'll prefer the good location. And America was sort of there first, right? You know, like the post office. I just sold the old post office. They say, if you want a good location, always buy a post office because the post office was there first. So what happens? I said to David, I said, so how good is it? He said, let me check. I'm going to check. He checked. He called me back. He said, I think we can do something great, sir. I think we can renovate the building and make it our embassy, and it'll be beautiful for $400,000. And I said, David, this is the only time in my life I said that. I said, David, it sounds too low. I think we'll lose credibility. Make it 500,000. And a friend of mine has an office building, an office in New York, and he's so proud of Jerusalem stone. He's got Jerusalem stone in the elevator lobby. And every time I go in, oh, look at this stone. Look, you know how expensive it was. He's always bragging about it. The guy's worth billions, and he's talking about his stone from Jerusalem. He said, look at this. This is Jerusalem stone. I said, you've told me that now 9 times every time I come in. He's so proud of it. So we're in Jerusalem now, right? Not New York. So we're in Jerusalem. So I said to David and the people, I said, see if you can use Jerusalem stone. Is it possible? The guy looks at me and says, are you kidding me? We got so much of that stuff. We built the whole thing in Jerusalem stone. Cost us nothing. And we got it done for less than $500,000. So instead of $2 billion, we got it done for $500,000. That was a saving. And we got it open. It was open 4 months later. So not only did we pick it, but we got it opened. It was a great thing. We have another quick story. Air Force One. You read it? Air Force One? It was $5.8 billion. It's actually 2 planes, 2 beautiful 747-800s. And I walk in and they wanted me to sign this contract for $5.8 billion. I said, who made the deal? They said, Obama. I said, I'm not signing it. Why? Because it's too much. They said, you don't know anything about it. I said, I know, but it's too much. And I told Boeing, Dennis, I said, Dennis, we're not going to buy those planes. What do you mean you're not going to buy them? I said, do we have a cancellation clause? The general told me, yes, sir. I said, good, let's cancel. I said, by the way, do we have to pay anything for canceling? Yes, sir. I'm very proud of it, sir. How much you have to pay? $200 million. I said, we have to pay $200 million to cancel? You mean we get nothing and we pay $200 million? I said, no, don't cancel. Just let it sit for a while. Let me negotiate. So Boeing went back and forth, back and forth. I said, nope, I'm not signing it. So it was about 5.8. And I said, it's got to have a 3 on the front of it. They said, what do you mean 3? It's got to be in the $3 billion. It sounds ridiculous too, but it is, you know, it's a hell of a plane. I mean, what can I tell you? Friends of mine buy Gulfstreams for $80 million. They think they're good. This is serious stuff. I said, it's got to have a 3 on the front. No way. There's no way we're going to do it, the Boeing guy says, head of Boeing, president, chairman. He goes, no way. And I said, all right, then we're not going to buy it. Calls me back 2 weeks later. Sir, we'll take off $500 million. Nope. Got to have a 3 on the front of it. He goes, we're not doing it, sir. I'm telling you. Next day he calls back. Look, we'll take off another 5. Do you know how much money these guys have? Can you believe it? They keep. So I said, nope. No, you don't understand. It's got to have a 3 on the front of it, or we're not buying it. And that was the end. I figured I'd never hear from him again. And what happens is, like 2 months later, I get a call from Boeing. You know, deal making is funny because once you're off a deal, it's like you forget about it. You don't care. You know, you're on to the next victim, right? So I get a call. I get a call from the head of Boeing. I said, I wonder what the hell he wants. And I take it. He said, sir, we'll do the deal. I said, what's the price? $3,999,999,999.99. And I said, you have a deal. So that was 2 years ago. That was 2.5 years ago. And now Boeing, it's a big story. Has anyone read this story? Boeing is now complaining that the deal that Trump made is too good and they're going to lose $600 million and they want to renegotiate the deal. And I tell the Biden administration, don't do it. They made the deal. Don't do it. But they will. They will. And then I painted it red, white, and blue. So gorgeous. And if there was any necessary additional, because the colors are slightly darker, they have to pick up the tab. Boeing has to pick up the tab. So Boeing said, we can't do it because it's going to be too hot in the plane. Well, they have to pick up the tab. So what happened is the Biden administration said, we'll change the colors back to baby blue. Now, baby blue is okay, but our plane should be red, white, and blue like the American flag. And I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Nobody expected that. They've been negotiating that for 56 years. I got it done in about 12 minutes. I did a lot for Israel. I did more for Israel than anybody, just about. And most importantly, in my opinion, I asked a friend of mine who loves Israel, what's the most important? Is it Golan Heights? Is it moving the embassy to Jerusalem? Jerusalem becomes the capital. What's the most important? She said, those things aren't even close. The most important thing you did was ending the Iran nuclear deal, which would have destroyed Israel. And now they're negotiating to put it back in place. It will be the end of far more than Israel if they do that. They were ready to make a deal with me. They were so ready, and then they become rich again. China wasn't buying from them. I said, you can't buy. If you buy from them, you can't buy. Because if you do that, we're not going to do any business with China. We're going to cut off. We're going cold turkey, which wouldn't have been such a bad thing anyway. And China wasn't buying. Nobody was buying. They were ready to make a deal, and now they become rich again. These people are fools that are running our government. Together, we put America first, and we put American families first. Compare how great America was just 2 years ago with how it is today. There was no inflation. The war with Russia going into Ukraine would never have happened. We had $1.87 per gallon gasoline. We were energy independent, soon to be energy dominant. We were leaving Afghanistan with dignity and strength, not surrender and death. We had a completely rebuilt military with the addition of Space Force. And by the way, in Afghanistan, we left, I think it was the lowest day in the history of our country. Think of it. We left, we took our soldiers out first. A child would know you don't do that. I didn't lose one soldier. I spoke to them, the Taliban. They said, why are you speaking to the Taliban? He shouldn't, the press. I said, because they're the people that make that decision. Like Jesse James, they say, why is it that you always rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is, right? The great Jesse James, who, by the way, was investigated far less than me. I always said Billy the Kid, Jesse James, and the legendary Alphonse Capone. Did you ever hear of Al Capone? If you add them all up together and multiply by 5, I was investigated more than them. A friend of mine said, you have to be the cleanest human being on earth. This has been going on for 6 years now. We had the biggest tax cuts and regulation cuts ever. Historic job numbers, 164 million people working, far more than we have working today. I keep hearing about employment numbers. We had far more people working. We handed the new administration the strongest border in U.S. history, and Biden quickly created the greatest border disaster. I believe in the history of the world. I don't believe there's ever been a border like this. You could go to third world countries. They're not letting people come in like they come into our country. They wouldn't let it happen. They wouldn't be able to sustain it. When Republicans retake control of Congress, one of the first bills they must pass is funding to hire thousands more of ICE and Border Patrol agents. These are great people. Biden's border crisis is also fueling the violent crime crisis. Instead of targeting parents, conservatives, and Christians, the Biden administration should be going in and dismantling the Crips, the Bloods, MS-13, these are the roughest gangs in the world, and other savage street gangs. We did it. We sent them out of this country by the thousands. And turning our communities into war zones. They are turning our communities into war zones. All Democrat run as we live just as though we lived in a third world nation. Instead of trying to disarm law-abiding Americans, we should try disarming the gangs, the cartels, and the violent criminals for a change. It's time to stop going soft and gentle on the hardened criminal element in this country. When we find these vicious repeat offenders, we need to put them behind bars immediately, and we need to keep them behind bars. When there are murderers or cop killers, they need to receive the death penalty. You kill a policeman, you get the death penalty. The entire Republican Party needs to get tough and take the radical left's crusade against our culture head on. These people are at war with Western civilization. They're at war with science. They're at war with truth, reason, and common sense. And in a very, very real way, they are at war with morality itself. It's not moral. What they're doing is just destroying everything, every fiber of our country. It's no longer enough for conservatives just to point out the extremism of the left. We have to do something about it. We talk. We have to do something about it. I was doing something about it. We were really doing something about it after the election, and then we had that result. As president, I was proud to issue the world's first ever ban on critical race theory in September of 2020. I also created the 1776 Commission so that our nation's children would learn to love America as much as we do. Biden repealed those executive orders that aggressively pushed woke left-wing racism into every part of government, from the Department of Education to the U.S. military, where I had just ended it. It was ended. Under Republican Congress, we will ban critical race theory once and for all. Under the next Republican president, any institution that seeks to implement these racist theories should be charged with a violation of federal civil rights law. Despite the parental backlash, Democrats are right now racing to pass a federal bill to push CRT in schools nationwide. It's terrible. Known as the Civics Secures Democracy Act, this bill would spend billions and billions of dollars imposing federal curriculum standards, so-called civics education. They call it civics education, which is nothing more than a fake name for radical left indoctrination. We have enough of it. It's Common Core 2.0, the idea of creating a national civics curriculum controlled by these communists and socialists, is madness for the United States of America. Democrats have lured Cornyn of Texas, Cassidy, who's a terrible senator of Louisiana, and incredibly Inhofe, who's a good man just retiring, and we have to talk to him, of Oklahoma. 77, I won 77 out of 77 counties, so I'm going to talk to Jim Inhofe. He's a good man. He's a good man. He must not know. But we can't let it happen. We can't be fooled. Enough is enough. Every conservative in the House and Senate needs to unite to kill this bill and to kill it immediately, but we can't stop there. It's time to finally and completely smash the radical left's corrupt education cartel. We are beyond the point of incremental reform. Our children are captives to unhinged Marxist educators who are pushing inappropriate sexual, racial, and political material on our children from the youngest possible age. They're not old enough to think. The current education system is so upside down that school prayer is banned, but drag shows are absolutely allowed. You can do whatever you want. You can't teach the Bible, but you can teach children that men get pregnant and that kindergartners are allowed to pick their own gender. You can't talk about the Bible. You would not trust these people to babysit your children for 30 minutes, and we should not let them educate millions of American students 6 hours a day, year after year. Sadly, the public school system has become an arm of the radical Democrat Party. They are trying to begin their recruitment process by the age of 5 and younger. And the sooner Republicans wake up to this, the better. We need smart people in education, and we need tough people, and we need people that aren't afraid. That's a big part of it. There's so many people that are afraid. It's totally out of control, and there is only one solution. At long last, every parent in America must be empowered to opt out of this indoctrination and send their child to the public, private, charter, religious, or home school of their choice. The Republican Party must become the party of parents' rights. You're not going to have a problem. There is clearly an effort in these schools to push gender confusion and impressionable young children without parents' knowledge or consent. That's what's happening. In a fair world, the schools that are forcing sexual propaganda on kindergartners would be investigated. Their administrators would be terminated. Their teachers would be removed from the classroom, and the school would be placed under receivership until it was once again a safe place for our children to learn. Pushing woke gender ideology. Woke gender ideology. Think of it. On young people is nothing less than child abuse. No teacher should ever be allowed to teach transgender to our children without the parents' consent. And I don't think too many people are going to be giving that consent, Mark. Not too many. And when Republicans retake Congress, they also need to crack down hard on Big Pharma for giving puberty blockers and other dangerous drugs to mutilate our children and our youth. Likewise, every federal bureaucrat who was complicit in this travesty needs to be told, "You're fired." Did you ever see that show? You're fired. Get out. Get out. Thank you. I mean, there's a group of women over there from North Carolina. I think that this is like their 92nd time, right? What is the number? How many times? Huh? 92. This is their 92nd time that they've watched me speak. And I say, And I say to them, I appreciate it. And they don't get bored. We never get bored, do we? It's very funny. You know, we get these massive crowds. This isn't a rally. This is something that we're doing with a great group of Christians, and we put it on together. But this is so great. But we give these rallies, as you know, many of you have been to the rallies, and we'll have 60, 70,000. In Texas, we had 187,000 people recently, 63,000 people in Alabama. And I say, you know, it must be my looks, because I've never had one reporter say Trump's a great speaker. How do you figure that? I said, do I speak well? I mean, I get these rallies. How many people will be there? Sir, you'll have 72,000 people today. Remember Biden? He couldn't fill in the 8 circles. I go to Arizona. We had 45,000 people. Biden showed up 2 days later. He had 8 circles. They had to put reporters there because there was no people. And then they say he won. I don't think so. The facts don't bear it out. But I appreciate it. It's just so great. It's so great. Look at how beautiful, incredible women. I hope their husbands are happy with this. Are your husbands? Their husbands put up with it. No, they travel. They're all over the place. I go to Iowa. They're in Iowa. But we love you. Thank you very much. Great Americans. Great, great Americans. But these are the issues conservatives must run on, and these are the issues conservatives will win on. And if we're going to save our country, this is what we have to do. Throughout time and down through history, American freedom has always been defended and preserved by citizens like you. Americans of courage. We need courage. We need courageous people. You're not going to win. You can be smart, but if you don't have courage, you're not going to win. We've seen that recently. People have no courage. And it seems to be a lot of Republicans with no courage. They're smart, they're tough, they have good policy, but they don't have courage in many cases. We need consistency and we need faith. From the first pilgrims to the earliest pioneers, from the patriots who won our independence to the heroes who vanquished fascism and communism, and from the civil rights movement to the decades-long struggle to protect innocent life, it has always been American believers who have advanced progress, worked for justice, safeguarded liberty, and uplifted the conscience of our nation. The spirit of America has never been found in the vast halls and marble buildings of Washington, D.C. It has always lived in the places of worship, the pews, the parishes, the town halls, the firehouses, and most of all, it has always lived in the hearts and souls of the American people. It was Americans of faith who founded this country. It was Americans of faith who built this country. It was Americans of faith who are going to save this country. With the prayers, passion, and commitment of everyone here today, we are going to fight for the values we cherish. We are going to fight for this nation that we love so much. In 2022, we are going to win a historic majority in the House of Representatives. We are going to reclaim the United States Senate. We are going to take back governors' mansions, state legislatures, and offices up and down the ballot, left and right. And then in 2024, we are going to take back our magnificent White House. And together we will make America stronger, prouder, freer, and greater than ever before. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America. God bless you.
Wow, that was super long. And that was kind of awesome because he said a lot of things, sort of, that needed to be said. Now, I have to disconnect off of the YouTube feeds quickly. So I apologize. Just hop over to Rumble at Tori Says on Rumble because I don't want to get dinged. I want to maintain myself on these channels. So I don't want to get dinged.